that's what my assumption was, but it's just open to the org, so like, because all the other areas. So if you want to start by early,
How long are you guys going to be there?
5 p.m. But I'm gonna go home and then
Yeah, now I go.
Yeah, a lot of people come by.
No, exactly. And
There
like,
it starts at 7.
right here. Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
Well, and the person now is here too. We're doing part of the medicine, so you can get ready at my house.
Oh, yeah, okay. All right. I think this is the one. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our second day of our September 2024 regional hearing for the California Truth and Healing Council. My name is Christina Snider-Ashtari. I'm a member of Nation Wakana, and a member of the Dry Creek Grand Trade and Eskimo Indians, and serve as the Tribal Affairs Secretary for Governor Gavin Newsom. First, I would like to thank Sogorea and Christina here for hosting us and for your partnership today. And as always, thank you to our outstanding Governor's Office of Tribal Affairs team for your work in coordinating this convening. We're going to open with some words from Christina, and then for those of you who've been with us through all of this, typically what we'll do is introductions of our team and any council members who are present, and then we will go over what the California Truth and Healing Council is and what this process is for folks who are new to it. For folks who are not new to it, you can rest your eyes. And if you need sunblock, I think I have some on the table out there. Just in case you need to reapply. Then once we go through that, we'll go through general introductions and any testimonials folks have today. Just kind of have some discussion. We'll have food at 6, and then we'll close with the food. So I'm going to hand it off to Christina.
Thank you so much. So nice to be in partnership to do this work together, and it's nice that it's in our home territory. This is the home territory of the Lashan people. We have been here since the beginning of time. We are in the territory of Huchun. Huchun is one of the many territories of our tribal people. We are tribal people encompass Alameda, Contra Costa, San Joaquin, parts of Napa and Solano along the waterways. So I am the tribal chair for the Confederated Villages of the Lashan people. Our tribal people were enslaved at Mission Dolores in San Francisco and Mission San Jose in Fremont, California. And we have an unbroken tie to our ancestral homelands. But we are also here as a part of the Sogorea Land Trust, the first urban indigenous women-led land trust in the country. And it started because, Janella LaRose is right there. She's the co-founder. She and I have been working together for over 30 years to protect and preserve the sacred sites of my ancestors in the Bay Area. And as a result of trying to protect and preserve those ancient burials, along with praying for the ancestors to come home from the institutions, we realized that if we were to receive those ancestors, we had nowhere to bring them home to. We had become homeless in our homelands, and as a result, decided to create a land trust in order to use that mechanism and tool to bring land back into indigenous hands. And although it is on our homelands, we are inclusive of indigenous people from all walks of life that have now made this their home. And so we welcome you to this land. This land is called Pinnantak. In our language, it means place of the bees. And my daughter, Deja, is the language carrier for our tribe. My great-grandfather, Jose Guzman, was one of the last speakers of the language, and the language went to sleep for almost 100 years. And so we're blessed to have Deja have this dream of bringing this language together. And so we're in relation with many different indigenous people all over the world to really learn about what that looks like and how do we do that work together. So on behalf of our people, on behalf of my ancestors, on behalf of the those that are yet to be born. We welcome you to our land so that we can do this important work together. So I offer just a prayer for us today. Creator and ancestors, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this beautiful circle of people. We ask that we come together with open hearts and open minds, and that we are able to talk about the difficult things and talk about the resiliency of our people, that we continue to do the work that our ancestors have put us on this earth to do. We say special blessings and prayers for all of our relatives that now live without a roof over their head, without enough food, without enough warmth, without enough coolness. We ask grandmothers and grandfathers to bring us back to being human beings again, to remember that we are responsible for our relatives. We pray for those that are affected by fires right now, and we pray that we have a good relationship again with fire. We say thank you so much for the rains that come in, and they continue to do their ancestral callings. We ask as this fall comes in that those gentle rains come in and help us as California Native people to gather our acorns, to fulfill our destiny and our food and our medicines. We ask grandmothers and grandfathers, we thank you so much for the beauty of the plants that give us foods and medicines, and we thank them for doing their ancestral calling. We thank you so much, grandmothers and grandfathers, for our elders and for those that are culture bearers and our song keepers and our medicine people. We ask for special blessing for our elders and for our children and for those yet to be born. We ask grandmothers and grandfathers to protect those that are affected by addiction and those that are feeling isolated, those that are behind the walls. Those of our ancestors are behind the walls of false borders. We pray grandmothers and grandfathers for those that are facing fascism across the world. We say a special blessing and prayer for our Palestinian relatives and those that are affected by genocide in Kashmir and in West Papua and in other places in the world. We recognize them as well. We recognize grandmothers and grandfathers, all of our warriors that are standing up against climate disaster, those that are standing up against the harms that are happening to our Mother Earth, and we say a special blessing and prayer for our Mother Earth. We say a special blessing and prayer for our waters, our streams, our lakes, our rivers, our bays, our oceans. And we ask that we come back into right relationship and that there's fresh water to drink for the next 7 generations and beyond. We ask for special blessing and prayers for those waters and for all of our relatives that live in those waters, that we clean them up in our lifetime, so that we could have those good relationships again. We pray for our salmon to come home. We pray for those to come back in an abundance. We pray for the abundance of this land that we know that we have here. We thank you so much for all of the blessings that you've given us. We ask that you go into our hearts and our minds, our spirits, to take care of anything that's hurting us right now, anything that is heavy on our heart, to take care of those things and to protect those that are sick right now. We thank you so much, grandmothers and grandfathers, for all of our blessings. We say, oh, oh, oh. There's elders that want shade. Our crew is going to move some of these canopies over us, so we don't have to be burning this beautiful fishman or sun that's in here. Oh, yeah,
So I'm gonna open with some logistics and preliminary business. Just
Just stay here.
Bring a second one over here.
I'm just kidding. No, I like the winter's coming, so I need it.
with that. And this is just logistics, so we can all just listen for a bit. As a reminder, we are recording this meeting. There's a camera there and a camera there. And we will be posting it to the Office of Tribal Affairs YouTube channel once it's processed. Please let us know if you'd like us to pause the recording at any point in today's meeting. That also goes for if there's anything that you want us to go back and edit or take out later. Please let us know. Sometimes people will share things that, upon reflection, they would rather aren't out in public or out on the internet. Potentially, there's culturally sensitive things that are shared. Potentially, it's you're kind of angry at someone right now, and you may have said something you didn't want everybody hearing, or that maybe you made up a day later. Let us know. Our processing takes a little bit of time, so we can go back and edit that before it gets posted. Because we just want to make sure that everybody is confident in what they're sharing in the space of these meetings. Share as much as you want, share as little as you want, but just know that we are recording and can stop at any time. For those interested in following the council, ongoing updates including listening session recordings, meeting recordings, any summary documents are available at the California Truth and Healing Council updates blog at cthattruthandhealing.com. You can also get updates for events by following the Governor's Office of Tribal Affairs on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Additional details, including meeting dates, agendas, and background information, are available at tribalaffairs.ca.gov/CTHC. Our next regional hearing is going to take place in Modoc County in a couple weeks. I'm going to hand it over to Loretta real quick. It's not time to introduce yourself yet, but you can talk about the next meeting.
So yes, our next regional hearing is going to be on October 12th up in Modoc County. Will be hosted by the Sogorea tribe, and that is at the community center. October 13th, we will be at Juanita Lake in Siskiyou County, and Juanita Lake is about halfway in between Reed and Klamath Falls. So those are our next two upcoming regional hearings.
Thanks, Loretta. And more details will be shared on our updates blog as they become available. If you'd like to assist or you'd like to get more information, please reach out to Loretta. I'd now like to remind everyone that in joining us here today, you agreed to adhere to the Council's principles for respectful engagement, which I'll summarize for you in a moment. A copy of those principles is available for your use and review at our website at tribalaffairs.ca.gov/CTHC. Refusal to adhere to the principles, which apply to all participants, including governing council members, staff, and community members, whether present or not, may result in your removal from today's meeting. What does that mean? We don't want to hear any sort of slight on people who aren't here and can't defend themselves. We also don't really want participants to be saying problematic things to each other. We want this to be a space that is open, comfortable for all. That doesn't mean we shy away from difficult topics. So feel free to share as needed, but we would prefer, and we actually, do not want you to be kind of launching personal attacks toward individuals, institutions. Some institutions you can't kind of talk about because they're part of the problem, but for individual tribes, that's really not kind of the purview of this council. So if we see something, we will say something, and if it continues or escalates, we will ask that you remove yourself and find a way to engage with this work, potentially after the fact in writing or with us on a one-on-one basis so that we can talk through your concerns. If you feel at any time that you need to step out or you feel that you may be in need of assistance, please find one of our team and we'll help you get some air. In order to create a space where participants feel welcome, respected, and able to speak comfortably, we'll uphold the following principles in all of our meetings, and we ask that you work for sharing and their stewardship. If you're a participant, we ask that you engage in the work of the council and with others in an open and respectful way. You engage in behaviors that will make others feel welcome. Take care of your emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical well-being, and seek support as you need it. We don't want this process to re-traumatize people, and we know that part of this process is necessarily going to do that because we're talking about things that people may not have talked about before. But we want, again, to the extent possible, to not be inflicting pain on each other while we're processing our own. Finally, I'd like to remind attendees that as we work through today's discussions, this process is necessarily open to all Californians, but we ask that those here as allies ensure that they please respect the space and voice of California Native participants, particularly elders in this process. We will defer to people who are from this place first when speaking, and again, we defer to elders. Just as a matter of kind of logistics, we don't put a timer on what people share, and so if you're getting like a little bit of anxiety about people sharing too much, and you want to speak, I think maybe just take a breath, take a walk, and then you can come back, and they might be done by then, and that's fine. For those members of the press in attendance or academia who might be using this after the fact, we ask that you engage with this process with deference to the Native experience and that you commit to obtaining the consent and final review from the Native peoples that you hear from today. Again, we don't want this to be an extractive process, and we hope that LILF is just in creating a safe space that is open, transparent, and welcome to all. So we're going to start with some intros from our team, and then I'm going to go over what this is, and then we'll open it up for discussion. And again, that will be your time to introduce yourselves, present any testimony you have, any thoughts you have, and then we'll go from there. So I'm going to hand it off to Loretta.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Loretta Miranda. I am a descendant of the Morongo Band Mission Indians in Southern California. My great-grandparents came from Warner Springs and the El Capitan Reservation, which was flooded with the building of the San Diego Reservoir. I am an attorney by practice. I serve as general counsel for the Fruit Tribe, but currently work at the Governor's Office of Tribal Affairs. Been there for about 3.5 years. Just really happy that you all are here today. Happy to be in the Bay Area. Before I went to law school, I worked at the Friendship House in San Francisco for about 4 years doing outreach and intake. So happy to be back in the community. You'll notice I wear a couple different hats. I'll be taking some photographs. If you do not want me to use a photo, just pull me aside and let me know. I tend to take a lot. It does make a clicking noise, but I'm still listening. So mostly when you talk. So when you're talking, I'll start clicking away. But hopefully it does not make you nervous. And thank you again.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Christina, for having us here today. Beautiful place. My name is Jason McCannell. I work for California State Parks in the Director's Office, but I'm spending most of my time on a contract with the Office of Tribal Affairs, supporting the Truth and Healing Council's writing and research needs. And I'm going to talk probably longer than I'm comfortable with to break down for you what that means and what that might mean for you. First, I should back up and say the part of my job at state parks that isn't with the council is as a geographer. I work on place names as part of re-examining our past initiative. And I started out working on replacing the names within our state park system that had the S word after Secretary's Order 4304 was issued banning the word from the national map in 2022. And since then I just did the count 34 place name change cases that were almost all of them brought to me by tribes, with a couple of exceptions, other communities that found a derogatory name or the name of someone who shouldn't be honored on one of the geographic features or facilities in our parks. So that's a gig of mine that I just want to share. I share everywhere I go because everywhere I go I meet people who know of a place that has a bad name that needs to be changed. If it's within state parks, I can kind of lead on the process, but if it's anywhere else, I know a lot about the process and I can give advice at least. I've also been appointed by the Secretary of the Interior to the Advisory Committee on Reconciliation and Place Names. And what we do on that committee is create recommendations for further Secretary's actions to ban derogatory words from the map or change the names of geographic features that are under her authority that need to be changed. So words like the B word for Native people from California have been recommended by my committee. And most recently we voted to remove the name Devil's Tower from Bears Lodge in the back there. So that was anyway, that's the place names. Now on to council stuff. See, I told you I was going to talk for longer. I'm comfortable. Council stuff. So I am the researcher for the staff. I am compiling everything that people send to us, whether it's written testimony or various other media. I am also seeking requests for research from the community. I met Christina. I've been friends with Christina a long time. We worked together at Jerry Brown's office, and I was the governor's personal research assistant. And if I'm good at anything, it's just finding stuff. If you, as a member of this community, believe that there might be documents out there, something that happened, or something that passed, or your tribe, or your family, your ancestors, your relatives, that you would like to see the documents brought to light as part of this process, you can come to me, and we'll have the former governor's former researcher looking for it for you. So that's one thing. One project that's actually come out of this process that's grown is, this is difficult to talk about, but the actual documentation of the system of slavery in California. It came up last year that somebody should be collecting as many of these documents as possible. There are these handwritten orders that were issued by county courts, a kind of court that doesn't exist anymore in California, that basically gave a settler the rights to, essentially the rights of a quote-unquote slave owner over these people. And when I started out last year, there were 16 of these known in Colusa County. I got those, digitized them, and since then I've found 30-something more, so I think I have 42 of these documents now. And on those documents are the names of 66 individuals. These names will just be first names that are either native Spanish or Anglo, and then the last name of the property owner who, and I believe that a lot of people in California actually adopt their last name, much like the South without other systems of slavery that exist in this country. Anyway, one of the reasons I always bring this up is we have these documents, they're in digital form, but I really want to connect with relatives before we just blast it all out to the public and figure out the most respectful way to do it. I'm traumatized by these documents. Somebody who's actually carrying that trauma from the system, it's going to be worse. So I so far haven't located anyone who's descendant of the people that I've identified. And if you think or know anybody who thinks that their family was involved in the system, you should get in touch with me. Other than that, I'm working on the report, but Christina's going to talk about that a little bit more. Is there another topic? Okay, that's it. All right. Once again, thank you very much, and I'm blessed to be here, and look forward to more discussions with all of you.
Thanks, Jason. And just to kind of pivot off of that as well, if there's anything that you've been thinking about, like, we know that there's something that happened within the past of our people, and we just don't know how to find those documents, so we'd like to figure out how to learn more about that. That's kind of where the indentured servitude search came from, was someone just mentioned, like, we know that our people were enslaved, but we don't have a lot of documentation of it, and we don't know where they went. And so if there's something like that that you have been thinking about, or you've heard in your family that, oh, this happened at this boarding school, or this happened at this institution, we can have Jason look into that for you as well. I'm also going to introduce, we have throughout this process contracted with the California Consortium for Urban Indian Health to connect us with traditional healers. We don't have one officially contracted for today, but we do have Sage if folks feel like they need to smudge. And we may do that at the end as well. But we are contracted with Sikui to be able to provide those services. And it's, I think, probably the first time in the state process where we've had traditional healers be a part of the process as we go, both traditional and Western-based behavioral health practitioners. So I'm going to hand it over to Shantae.
Hello everyone. I'm Chante Grillo. I am Northern Sierra Miwok and a citizen of the island band of Miwok Indians. I also live like just around the road, so I was actually really excited to come in here and take a look at this case for the first time. As Christina said, I'm from the California Consortium for Urban Indian Health and usually help the council with connecting with healers and mental health professionals. But yeah, unfortunately, since we weren't able to contract with anyone today, we'll just have to rely on each other. And I also brought some sage and angelica root that I can burn throughout if anybody feels like they need that extra bit of healing as we go through this process. So thank you again.
So again, if you feel like you need to step out or something has kind of triggered something for you, please feel free to grab Chante and she can go on a little bit of a walk with you. So now I'm gonna just do a quick JoJo. I do also want to introduce, so part of our office outside of this is we oversee all of the tribal affairs work, all of the indigenous relations work, all the Native American policy for the state of California from the governor's office. So the state side of that policy where we're meeting tribes and Native people, hopefully in a place of respect and in a place where we're making a bit more progress toward reflecting the needs and priorities of California's First People. But in that process, we sit within the governor's office and sometimes we bring in interns and externs and legal fellows to be able to understand the work from the inside and how we've been able to navigate it, create a little bit more of a cohort of people who might be able to step into these types of roles moving forward. And if not that, actually at least understand how complicated all of this is so that when they grow in their career, they can navigate it effectively. So I'm going to hand it off to JoJo, who is our new fellow in our office and will be with us through December and will be helping us with this report as well.
First, I want to say thank you to Christina and Janella for allowing us to be in this space with you all and the Sogorea to witness us. My name is JoJo Lee, and I am in my third and final year of law school at UC Davis School of Law. And I am a citizen of the North Fork Rancheria of Mono Indians of California. And yeah, I'm just happy to be here and be a part of this. Thank you.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about what the California Truth and Healing Council is, what this is, what we're kind of doing right now, and that will be the most you hear me talk, hopefully, for the rest of the day, and then we'll go into more of the listening space and hearing from all of you. So what is the California Truth and Healing Council? Well, back in June 2019, Governor Gavin Newsom issued a formal apology by way of executive order. What is an executive order? It is a legal order that the governor or any kind of high executive official like the president can issue, and it applies to everybody under his purview. So what does that mean? It doesn't apply to people who are constitutional officers outside of his authority, but it can be persuasive for them. But it means that all of the agencies and all of the departments and all of the commissions that are under the governor are required to do the things under his order. And it's in effect until it's rescinded, so it can actually go beyond the specific governor that issues it. So for example, we reference B 1011, which is a Governor Brown B executive order that has not been rescinded and has actually been incorporated by reference into this executive order, which is N Newsom 1519. And that executive order both apologized for the atrocities that the state of California has committed at the beginnings of the state against California Native people and the people who were already here. And it also called for creation of a California Truth and Healing Council that would take some time to basically reorient the history of the beginnings of this state so that it would come from a more holistic and more tribally Native-driven perspective. So why did he do that? We had come to the point where he's the 40th governor in the history of California, and some people are aware of how this state was created. Not a lot of people are, because our history books tell us that there were Native people and then there were Spanish people, and then there was Mexico, and then there was gold, and then that's how California came into being. And so for him, he knew about this history of exploitation, extraction, removal, genocide of California Native people. And when he learned that nobody had ever apologized for this awful and gross past, he took it on himself to do that, and then wanted to create a mechanism understanding the diverse and complex population of California Native people, to understand what does that apology actually mean for different people, and what should we be apologizing for, and make that a community-driven process, so that at the end of this we have actual recommendations to make things better based on the actual harm felt, based on the actual history that happened to different and diverse populations in California, versus kind of a just, I'm apologizing and we're done with that and we can move on with, our business, and really an apology as an opener, so that we can understand exactly what should that mean and what should be done in order for that to be a meaningful action. We're just talking about cats a lot, so I'm crazy cat lady, so. I got distracted. So.
One side note, if you park on Ashby, and if you're on this side of the street, at 4 o'clock you're at risk of being towed. So if you're on this side on Ashby, just want to make that notice real quick, because it's 4:03, so go move your car.
Either people are okay with tickets or they're fine.
They'll be towed. Not even tickets.
Either people didn't want their car anyway. So I guess that's what this is. And so the executive order wasn't meant to be like, here's how you're going to do this. It was really a starter for, my office needs to consult with tribes to figure out how to do this in a way that's going to be meaningful and is going to feel like it's actually community driven. And so we entered into about a year of tribal consultation just to understand what kind of approach would make sense. Prior to the executive order, we researched different international mechanisms. The only mechanism within the United States that's done something like this is the Maine Wabanaki Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which has examined the compliance of the state of Maine with the Indian Child Welfare Act for Wabanaki people in the state. For those who are aware of Maine, it is a small place, and there are, I think it's 7 Wabanaki tribes, but I reported it, so now I'm gonna get internet hate if I got it wrong. So it might be 7, but it's a smaller number of Wabanaki tribes, and was very limited in scope and in timing. But was something that I think inspired how we are moving forward with this council. But really wanted to get an understanding from tribes throughout the state. What would be a process that would have some integrity, would feel community driven, would feel like everyone had a voice, and would not feel like it was kind of ignoring certain interests. So at the end of that process, we came to this, there's gotta be people who can kind of tell us how to move forward from like an executive level, but they can't be seen as representative of the community because the community is too large and too complicated and too diverse to do that. So we appointed 12 members with 4 alternatives from throughout the state, endeavoring to have diversity of recognition status, diversity of age, diversity of gender, and diversity of even kind of differences in tribal size and economies, so that we could at least have a decision-making body that would bring that experience and that thoughtfulness to the process, but understanding that the council itself is actually every single descendant of the genocide here. So all California Native people are members of this council and all have a voice in this process. We then have been going up and down the state in regional quarterly meetings, and so we've been kind of all over the place in quarterly meetings, which are a little bit different from this in that We have kind of tribes from the regions that we go to. We'll also prepare some different testimonials. We'll prepare some different issue-specific items to go over. And so sometimes it's about repatriation, sometimes it's about child welfare, sometimes it's about MMIP, depending on the priorities of the tribes in that region. And those meetings will take place over a course of a number of days. We also have these regional hearings, which are more kind of open-ended listening sessions, discussion sessions, and we're really using these to make sure that we're listening to the community, understanding the perspectives of different places, looking at specific incidents that happened, and then also getting informed recommendations from what you're all seeing as the most pressing issues that need to be addressed. All of this is going to culminate in a report that will be issued on the 175th anniversary of the state, which is just a little less than a year from today. And it will be both that reframing of the historical narrative, so not, well, it was discovered the end, but there were people here that continue to be here. Something awful and devastating happened without their consent, without their knowledge, without their agency, and what happened since then. And so that's what we're having this whole process informed is, are we going to talk about the heroes that persisted and survived and held our languages and our cultures to today? Are we going to talk about the awful things that happened, because people should know that they're culpable for awful things that happened and we don't want to repeat those awful things? And so that's really what the report is going to be reflective of, plus recommendations for policy, funding, and the like for both the state, but also private actors, because we know that California is one of the wealthiest places in the entire globe. And it's not just that it's tax dollars that make us wealthy, it's that we have some of the highest earners and the highest earning corporations, and a lot of funds move through these lands. And a lot of accountability can be shared throughout the people who now benefit from doing business, living, and raising families here. So the recommendations will be spread across public and private interests, and they'll be through a couple of different lenses. So we have issue area lenses like wellness, like access to lands, waters, and we also have subcommittees to ensure that we're looking at all of these issues in an equitable way. So each of the recommendations that come out of this, each of the chapters that come out of this report will also have a lens based on the subcommittees that have been created by the Governing Council. So what does that mean? We've got a status and identity subcommittee, understanding that not every tribe and not every Native person has been able to both benefit or not benefit from the rights and responsibilities that come with federal recognition. And so what does that mean if you are a member of a federally recognized tribe that is doing really well? Does that mean that there's any sort of less obligation? Probably not, but it also means that you may be able to access certain programs and resources that someone who has been disenrolled or who might be from a non-federally recognized tribe can't access. And so how we frame and how we talk about the recommendations, it's going to matter because we're going to need to build up more resources and more access for people who have been historically disenfranchised from kind of the systems that have been put in place for California Native people. So the report itself is, we're in the process of finalizing the contract, so we can't talk about it too much. But California Native academics will be submitting individual chapters to reflect what we've been hearing in these processes. Those chapters will be put together. We're getting like some good soundtracks. Those chapters will be put together in kind of a draft that will be circulating next year. And part of that is that we are hosting issue area summits early in the first quarter of next year, so that everybody can come together, with the drafters and make sure that their issues are adequately addressing what they think needs to be in the report. So our last quarterly meeting for the Truth and Healing Council is going to be in Sacramento in November. It's the same week as the inaugural California Native American Parade. And if you want to build a float with us, then come talk to us after. But we anticipate it will be kind of rounding up everything that we've heard. If there's anything that we need to discuss more, it'll be the time to do that, and it will be kind of closing our listening season before presenting what we think we've heard next year. So next year we'll be going up and down the state still, to the disappointment of probably our families. But we'll be coming back out to community to shop around, to show you kind of, I think, what we think we've heard, and so that you have the opportunity to take a look at it before it becomes final for that September date. In addition, we have a collaborator who is actually here today in his private capacity. We have a documentarian who has been following some of our meetings and is going to release a documentary in conjunction with this report. One of the things that we've been struggling with in this process is we've seen processes like this happen before. We've seen ASIP, we've seen a couple of different things that we're purporting to do better by California Indian countries, and a lot of those ended up on a shelf somewhere and didn't go anywhere. So it's been really important for us, especially as California Native women driving this process, that this doesn't become just another report that can end up on a shelf that in 20 years people can go like, wow, didn't we do a thing 20 years ago? Whatever became of that. So we've been thinking a lot about how do we catalyze this kind of reparative, restorative justice work in a state where most people don't actually even know that California Native people are still alive, that our tribes still exist, that we're an active third jurisdiction, many third jurisdictions within the state, and how do we very quickly create visibility for a group of people who has survived by making ourselves invisible, and also for a state that has ignored their obligation to us by also making us invisible in history. So part of our collaboration with Jake, who will introduce himself as a regular person when we go around later, is we wanted to find a partner who will help us tell our story in our own words, and will really humanize us as people, so that when these recommendations come out, there's an accompanying hour-and-a-half film where you can actually see the people who are living this history right now. Anything else I should mention? We have a sizzle reel for the documentary that is on our social media. For those of you who have been following it, it's only from 2 of our meetings, so it's not representative of all of the content that we've been pulling together, but a sizzle reel, for those of you who don't know what it is, we just learned this last year, is for fundraising, and so that's for philanthropy, private partners to help kind of tell this story. And then for us, it's actually been helpful because we've been able to socialize them to this process, so that when we do have remedial recommendations that would require some partnership, that they'll actually know what we're talking about. So sizzle reel is available on our website. Any final? Yeah, and so Jake's work is independent of the state and of us. He's done a great job, because it looks like it's not, but it is. And all of the fundraising is from non-Native funders. We thought it was really important that Native people don't pay for to tell our own stories. In a weird way, it's actually been really challenging to raise those funds, because they don't know that we still exist or why this is needed, which is kind of the point, I think. But just noting that it's completely independent, and for us, it's also part of. We don't want to keep asking Indian country to tell our own stories and do our own work. We want people to have the opportunity to step up as partners in a meaningful way. Anything else to comment? Okay. right, so I am done talking for the most part. I do want to flag too that there is an event tonight that we're not endorsing, but are just going to flag at the Oakland Museum where there's going to be some native music played. And so we may actually try to get done a little bit early to be able to check that out. And I think it's free to the public, so if anybody's interested, we could all probably just go together. So at this point in time, what we'll do is we open it up to all of you to introduce yourselves, because we want everyone else to know who's in the space that we're sharing. And you can share whatever is on your heart. You can also share any testimony that you provided. And we'll start with California Native folks who are from this region. If there's anyone who wants to do that first, if not, we'll just pass it around and we'll just go until we're done. So I'm going to open it up if any folks from the region.
My name is Jonathan Cordero. I'm the chair of the Ramatush tribe, and I want to say thank you to Karina and the Lisan people for hosting us today. It's wonderful to be here. I have a lot of titles, so I'm going to start with those, and then I'm just going to make one real brief comment and pass it along. As I said, I'm the chair of the Ramatush tribe, or the original peoples of the San Francisco Peninsula. I am the executive director of the Association of Ramatush, which is our nonprofit. And I used to be an academic, so I'm one of those native scholars that Secretary Snider was talking about. But I'm not on this program, your program.
Not yet.
Right. Well, we'll see. I've worked in the last 3 years, after I retired from the academy. In the last 3 years, I've worked at UC Law and at USC, and currently have affiliations at UC Berkeley and Harvard. And most of the work I do is on sovereignty, but that's for another topic, another day. What I want to talk about today very briefly is about the first genocide in the state of California, which often gets overlooked. So as most of you know, Benjamin Madley wrote a book a little while ago called The American Genocide, and it was about the genocide during the American period in the state of California. I'm an academic expert on the mission period in California. And in just a little side notes here, in next year, we'll make sure that the Truth and Healing Council gets a copy. Next year, we should have a publication from UC Press that revises the history of the mission period in California from the perspective of California Indians and our accomplices. We received $1 million grant from the University of California to do that. So we're happy to share that and put it in the bookshelves of the state of California, and then hopefully it gets used beyond that. In that volume, the academics prove that slavery existed at the missions in California, and more importantly, I think also we prove that genocide occurred at the California missions, and I just want to say briefly why and how that happened. Prior to coming to California, the Spanish missionaries were learned, they were all men, were learned men. And they read the writings of their predecessors prior to coming to California, all of whom talked about the fact that when Native peoples come to the missions, they get sick and die. Junipero Serra and Francisco Paulo, who was here at Mission Dolores, they were actually in northern Baja, California, during the last major epidemic, and they saw this with their own eyes. But the real sort of telling fact here for all of us in California, and for California natives, is that in 1821, Mariano Payeras, who was the father president of the California missions at La Purísima, wrote a letter to his supervisors in Mexico. And in that letter, he says basically that Spanish missionaries have noticed and observed throughout time, their time in California and at present, that he said in the wilds, and he meant out in the natural world, in our native country, we're robust and healthy. But when we come to the missions, when our ancestors came to the missions, they got sick and they died, especially women and children. Then he asked the question, what should we do about this? And his answer was, written in the same letter, was that none of us, and by that he meant the Spanish missionaries, none of us is empowered to change the way that the Spanish missions are administrated. In other words, keep following orders. And where have we heard that before, right? So the point here is that the Spanish missionaries knew in advance, before they came to California, that the California Indians would die at the missions. They saw it with their own eyes. They acknowledged it, but they continued anyway, under the orders from their superiors in Mexico. That, by definition, is genocide, right? The deliberate neglect of known harm constitutes genocide in this context. So the reason why I'm using the word intention is important here, because if you look at international definitions of genocide, one of the critical variables is it has to be intentional. So if you deliberately neglect the fact that people are dying and you continue anyway, that is an intentional decision that you make to continue on, knowing full well that California Indians are going to die at the mission. So again, there is a first genocide in California that doesn't get talked about enough. Some of that will be in this volume that we're publishing, and I hope eventually to write a paper about it and share it with all of California and beyond. So thank you for giving me the space today. I have to go, so I apologize, but I'm happy to hand it off to the next person. Amen.
I was trying to get eyes on you in case you wanted to voice anything first. Mishmin Tudis, Firecrack Canyon, Coyote and Stairs Roots. I was trying to be sly and double confirm with Miranda. She's from straight here. And reminding me that it's okay to come, even though we're sold out. I currently am tribal chair of Indian Canyon Nation, daughter of tribal chairwoman Emeritus Anne Marie Sayers. We happen to have the only federally recognized Indian country between Sonoma and Santa Barbara along Central Coastal California. That being said, I am tribal chair, I'm president of our 501c3, I am CEO of Canyon Consulting LLC, I am a board member of NACRI, which is Native California Archives Resource Institute, I'm a board member of Indigenous Nations Diversity Network, I'm a board member of many things and doing many things. And I'm tokenized often because I am able-bodied-ish, I'm moving around. I happen to be privileged to have a unique upbringing from opportunities that my mother empowered and had access to. She was part of the conversations here in Berkeley when it came to acknowledging Indigenous Peoples Days in the 80s. So I have been shadowing my mother all my life. And exactly, I want to double and triple and everything probably has been said in many of the meetings because I've been listening on the sideline. There are two things that are really huge in California. Many people don't believe we are still here, even though there are people who are like, oh my gosh, natives are awesome. Because a lot of the artwork that happens is like, what was this land pristine before contact? And then all of a sudden, like, oh, you guys are here. There's rarely ever any acknowledgement of our community members being mayors or in the war or pivotal innovators, community members fighting for our rights, people being thrown in jail for arson because we continue tending our land with fire or things of that sort. So people are like, well, why is it like this? Or why aren't you federally recognized? Or why isn't that? And so that information, that kind of dead zone is very challenging because the way I put it is like, I get to go to fourth graders and talk to them about slavery and genocide, and it's fun. And so I've learned how to navigate those conversations with ease and humor. Very angry inside, but that one is the lack of truth in history, and that is in the infrastructure of our education system. So similar to standards and expectations, I really think there should be trainings, like cultural sensitivity trainings, mandatory, cultural competency trainings, mandatory. for various agencies and institutions, and it needs to be Indigenous-led and or Indigenous consulted. So I do a lot of cultural resource management in regards to NAGPRA, CEQA, AB 52s, Section 106. And so I'm on job sites and I give them a short cultural sensitivity training just to be like, hey, we're out here, this is what we're looking for. However, it would be great to have the applicant or the decision makers right there in that circle and or a larger training. And I say Indigenous-led or trained, consulted, because in the United States, we make up less than 5% of the United States population, less than 2%, technically. And there's not many of us. So if it's approved by Indigenous communities, then I highly recommend it. Another element that is the healing of our own peoples. And an example, I grew up here in the Bay Area, of course, and I was really excited about what we call Ohlone Days, and now it's the Gathering of Ohlone Peoples, and it's in Newark at Coyote Hills, and East Bay Regional Parks hosts it, and I grew up there, so like I got some cousins and community members, so familiar faces. The biggest challenge there was I always heard our cousins say, wouldn't it be great to have this for us? Because the state parks has the funding to put on a public event or public consumption for free active education. You know, non-native people come in and be like, oh, can I learn from you? Oh, can I be present here? And it's exciting and it's fun. And you have, you know, traditional ecological knowledge bearers and mentors. You have non-native community members who have learned from native people. So you have kidnappers, you have people who harvest the tule. And I always hear our cousins say, wouldn't it be great to have this for us? And a way that we can have our smaller healing conversations, and then for those who want to engage in consensual public presentation or gathering, or like a small training, like, hey, all of our cousins, let's all have this language sharing, regalia making, community strengthening, empowering, all this these days prior. And then for those who do want to engage in the public presentation realm, here's best practices. Because I, as a native who come from a very small tribe, I'm really lucky to have had the upbringing I have to be as, I sometimes am not, but eloquent as I can be, a person who can be in front of people, like talk slower, present, tricks of the trade that you kind of learn on the fly if you aren't properly trained to be on a mic and on a stage performer. So I've been empowered by being able to go to places in the moment where you just push me in front of people. I would love to share the tips of the trade to cousins and relatives at gatherings or events where we're all supporting each other if there was means to do so. Meaning, so many times we're doing this out of our own pocket, we're trying to help each other, and many of us might recognize that a lot of times the common occurrence is the people who have the least usually have those to share the most. People without know what it feels like to be without. And so I've had the most rich engagement from community who've shared the most, usually because they're also in similar struggle. And whenever I go to some spaces, I remind people, I'm like, the largest lesson I've learned from Indigenous cultures is the way you flex and the way you brag about your wealth is sharing. And so, like, you know, the Kalash community way of, you know, Northwest, and so sharing and offerings. And I wish I had the abundance to be able to share. I do have abundance in my mind. I like, I literally make mini zines and I hand them out freely all the time because I got tired of saying the same things over and over and over again. So I have like 5 designs now. One of them is We Are Still Here that talks about 200 language dialects of California, which reminds people that if there are over 200 language dialects, that means there are different governing structures, communities, societal standards, and ways of community navigating the world. And so the unique part about that is I'm doing this on my own time, my own resource, my own dime, and I can only go so many places. And I recognize how valuable. I really hate centralized spaces because, like, I'm actually part of like D-Web, decentralized web. At the same time, centric or centralized spaces, how beneficial they can be, where someone could go to get information. And so I want to support the cool circles that have those access points or spaces of information to generally field resources. Say, by the way, this exists. By the way, this exists. Because that's one thing that I keep running into when there's events in the day. Unless you're on Facebook over here, or maybe following Instagram over there, there isn't a, and I don't want to say renewed central space, because I really don't want to, like, just say go there, I want to say we need to support each other's homes, and there needs to be infrastructure or assistance in supporting those circles. So me being a designer, me being a millennial, a digital native, me being a semi-able-bodied community member, me being a privileged native, being raised on the land of my ancestors, where my ancestors have always been, I recognize I have a unique position in this world, and I will do whatever I can for as long as I can, however I can, to do my best to honor my ancestors to the best of my ability, to honor truth and history, and attempt to be a good ancestor in training. And so I'm all ears when it comes to community members who are thinking around those realms. And then a side note, I happen to have the only federally recognized Indian country between Sonoma and Santa Barbara along Central Coastal California, and our land is in danger. Indian Canyon is in danger because of an encroaching neighbor. And I don't even know how to start. Why? Because I have two disabled elders that I don't know how to navigate the system. I identify as neurodivergent because all of the tests are showing that I have ADHD and possibly late diagnosis autistic, and I struggle and stumble. I can't fill out a form to save my life. And navigating the system of low income, having disabled elders, having indigenous land, no tribal community to offset the labor and expectations, off the grid living system of a log cabin, trying to keep my elders warm, elders fed, elders taken care of, and no familiarity of navigating the system, and the cool cheat codes that some of these middle and upper class community members figure out day in and day out. They're like, oh cool, there's a cheat code. Oh, if you have an LLC and you have that LLC right in that land, this one you bypass this system where you can protect yourself. When I'm like, I haven't even figured out my taxes the past few times. And so I'm trying to also say, like, where are resources for not federally recognized Native peoples who the BIA claim fall through the cracks as federally recognized land, with no resource and limited capacity to figure out what forms to fill out, what community member to pursue potential debt. Like, where do people let me go to find aid who's also working my tail off to do some of the work that I see that some of these educational institutions want to know, try to do, don't always have the resources to do or the privilege of access. Because me as a brown, queer, able-bodied-ish being can enter spaces without a side eye. That's my comparison to someone who's working in an office who is not indigenous, who is an advocate, and possibly being questioned. So I recognize the position I'm at. So I'm just generally kind of curious, like, one, where can I go? Two, how can I offer what I have? Three, where can I connect with the cool beings? Four, how do I find such resources? And also, Indian Canyon is a safe haven for indigenous people in need of land for ceremony. And so I also make this offer that if you do need a space like that, please reach out. Our 501c3 does need love and volunteers, but also the land is welcoming to community who are in need of that. Yeah, so Indian Canyon is a space that is proved as a safe haven for indigenous people since contact, and to this day it is still a living cultural heritage center that is a resource that is just being taken care of by the families of my mother, myself, and all the amazing volunteers and community members who have ever come to help and aid our community. So we're by community, for community, doing all that. So ask, offer, give. Yeah. I think allowing me to share my voice present here. Are there any other Cali natives, local? Yeah. Let's go. Oh.
Thank you, Kenan. Thank you, Karina. Thank you, Daniela. Okaraka Skaka Bones, Nana Rametush, Salilian Deviwa. My name is Kaka Bones. I am a Rametush descendant, I am a Salilian descendant, and I am also a documented Deviwa descendant. I am the founder and executive director of Mochiate Indigenous Land Trust. We are a women-led 501c3. We have majority Rametush descendants on our board of directors. As of yet, we're set up as a land trust, but yet have no land for us to be stewards of. But that's not stopping us. We're moving forward. We've established our own language school, Shali Rametush, meets weekly in Moss Beach on the peninsula. We Zoom to other relatives that live out of the area. And last March we celebrated our 1-year anniversary. And we're working with two linguists from Berkeley who are helping to revitalize and bring back our language that we've never native speakers in the years. Thank you, Deja, for helping us Chichenyo from here on the East Bay. In fact, even the name Ramaytush is Chichenyo, and Rame in the Chichenyo language is west. So from this perspective, the people of the peninsula are the people of the west. And so thank you to your ancestors for doing so much to document your language, because that in turn is helping us to develop our language. We are very active trying to preserve our ancestral homeland, which I would like to also say unceded ancestral homeland, which I don't think I have heard here today. Unceded means we never relinquished stewardship of our land. This land has been stolen. And I personally don't use the term alone, because it is an umbrella over many tribes, many languages, different perspectives. And when you speak to the general public, usually the only term they know is Ohlone. And they're not aware that here we are on an ancestral homeland, or Ramaytush, or Tamian, or Awaswas in Santa Cruz, or Rumson in Monterey. All of these terms are not familiar to the general public because of the overuse of the term Ohlone. So to me, that term acts as a cultural eraser. So whenever it comes up in conversation, I try to use that as a teaching moment to educate every single person on having an interaction with. I'm also on the education committee with the Historical Society in Half Moon Bay. So when children are coming on field trips, I'm there to represent, mostly with the younger children. I talk about the animals that used to live here on the coast, and their eyes get so big when I talk about cohabitation with California grizzly bears. And when I point out how tall and how huge they were, they just are in total amazement that here we live in virtually houses that were like baskets with no, front door, so to speak of. And these were our neighbors that we cohabitated with for thousands of years. And yet, the only recognition of that we have at this point is on the flag. And that they have now been hunted to extinction. So that difference of indigenous perspective of respect and reciprocity that didn't come with the big ships. What came with the big ships was patriarchy, greed, and brutality. These concepts were foreign to us, but yet that has been imposed on us, and that's what we were raised with. And so I feel it's really important, the work that you are now doing, that goes over into the curriculum in the school system. The school system needs to change, and I hope that you can help in that process. Chiete is the matriarch of our family. She's documented in Mission Dolores in San Francisco in 1782. The mission documented our family's indigenous names, which is very rare. Usually it's just the Spanish baptismal name. And also, they documented the name and location of our village site. So I'm proud to say I'm a descendant from the village of Pinnantak along Calera Creek in what is now known as Pacifica. And we have an ongoing struggle because we are right on the coast. It's prime real estate for development. It's an ongoing challenge for us. For the last year and a half, I've been speaking to the Pacifica Planning Commission because there's a proposal by an applicant. There's a quarry site there, and there's a trucking company named Bayland Soils who is applying to the city of Pacifica to bring in truckloads of possibly contaminated construction site soil and dump it into the quarry site at our village, claiming it's mining reclamation. Total disregard the fact that we have red-legged frogs, San Francisco garter snakes. We have western pond turtles. There's a coastal wetland right there. It's right at the mouth of the creek that goes to the ocean. Just to the south of us at Baramai Pond is a healthy, thriving ecosystem of sea stars. The survivors, it's ironic, like us, they are the survivors during this entire wasting disease that plagued the whole coast all the way to Washington. We have a healthy ecosystem of sea stars that would be jeopardized by any toxins launching into the ocean right there. In August, the Planning Commission of Pacifica, which I've been at every meeting speaking in opposition to this proposal, voted 5-0 unanimously not to accept the proposal from Bayland Soils. Bayland Soils, the founders of Bayland Soils, are currently serving prison time in federal prison for bribery. The city of San Francisco has banned them from doing business in the San Francisco jurisdiction. Yet this is the company that Pacifica is entertaining doing business with. And even though it was a unanimous vote not to accept their proposal, the city manager is pushing this forward. And this coming September 23rd, it's been appealed to go to the city council. The city council is to possibly approve this because they've been told there's no other option than to dump the soil in our ancestral homeland. And so it's an ongoing struggle. We're still struggling. And so now we're looking for legal representation if this moves forward, because we won't stop at protecting our ancestral homeland. And so thank you so much for all of you for giving me a voice today. I appreciate it.
So we get to just talk, huh? Yeah. That's a crazy thing to give me a mic then. I just want to thank everybody again for being here, but I think that there's a couple of things on my heart. And this last week, so 2 weeks ago, I guess we were in Hawaii. What a beautiful place to be. And I was in Hawaii because we were doing language revitalization and talking to our relatives, the Kanaka relatives, about the beautiful lands that they're restoring and looking at fish ponds that are coming back to life and their ancestral places. And one morning we're getting ready for a meeting. I get a phone call from Sacramento. Native American Heritage Commission calls me to tell me that a private landowner found an ancestor while they were digging a French pipe underneath their house. And so, of course, it's our responsibility to take care of those ancestors. But it's heavy on my heart because we have two non-native archaeologist students that are working with us, and they're beautiful. They went out there and they looked at the site and they told me what was happening there and talked to the coroner. And one of the things that I'll say to just go backward was that Janella and I had been working on stopping developments all over the Bay Area. We would show up at sites with hard hats and vests and try to stop the developments happening around that we knew that were destroying our sacred site. Those were sites that were well known that were going to be developed. Places that were putting up condominiums in San Jose, or they were putting up a mall in Emeryville, or we were showing up for the West Berkeley Shell Mound, or so many other places, right? But this one, I think it just I ended up finally going to that spot this past week. And I walked down into, and the guy is nice enough. His wife is freaked out about it. But I go downstairs into this basement, and And underneath that basement is a full shell mound. And in their front yard, and in their backyard, and behind the house, and on both sides of them, is this intact shell mound that my ancestors had lived on the coast before they moved the coast in Alameda. And that it's our responsibility as California Native people to have to continuously live that trauma of our ancestors being taken out of the ground. It's not just about, the 9,000 in Berkeley or the many others in different institutions. This is currently going on right now. This isn't something that happened in early 1909 or whatever, 1924, but this is now, today, in 2024, that we're still dealing with our ancestors' burials being removed. And that it's always about these landowners saying that they don't want it recorded because they don't want their house to be less value, or they don't want to redesign, and to try to hold that and have those conversations. How does the state fix that? How do we start talking about those truths that hurt to the soul? How do we stop that so that my grandchildren that run around this place don't have to continue to do that work? How do we come back to being human beings? Because that's not being human beings. We cannot just continue to say that it's business as usual. We recently got the Westberg Showman, a portion of it. A portion of it. It's not the entire thing, but it's the last open space at the bargain basement price of $27 million that we had to buy back our own land, our own sacred place, for part of our cosmology stories. And that we were blessed that those ancestors wanted it to happen, and they put those resources there for that particular reason. And how much more? We were working on getting the land returned from the city of Oakland. We had a beautiful relationship. They actually came to us to offer us land. We didn't go asking them for land. And they offered us a piece of beautiful land up in our hills that had been forested to build San Francisco when San Francisco was still there, deforested. And then somebody had it in their mind to, this guy Joaquin Miller, to plant Millie Willie, whatever he wanted up there. Now it's a fire hazard. This piece of land that is now called Redimu, that sits above our red ochre place that our ancestors have been a part of for thousands of years. We were going through this process. It took us 5 years of meeting with the city every other week for 5 years. It wasn't something immediate. But in all the research that these people that had it in really good heart to do to give this land back, couldn't find a law that would allow the city to return land to Native people. So how does the state fix that? How do we get land back in a way so that cities actually have laws that allow them to give that land back? If we have building up these tools that people really want to do this work, there are no tools for them to do it except to create a reverse cultural easement. Still, it's underneath the city, right? There's an agreement that's long-term, and that's good for now, but it's not the best. It's not the best practice, right? So looking at these best practices, what can we do? How do we stop those ancestors from coming up? How do we return those ancestors? It really was the dream of Sogorea Land Trust, is to find land to return all of those ancestors. But all of these people that came together finally now to do this work of land back is really because of this idea of bringing back those ancestors home. And when I do these talks in public, I always say it's not just for the Sean people, it's for the dignity of everyone that now makes this their home. That if we return those ancestors where they belong, that there's these processes that get in the way, and even though we create these laws that are supposed to work, they don't always work. There needs to be new legislation that allows us to protect these sites indefinitely forever, right? That there should never be an opportunity for someone to to decide to put a French drain in their basement and destroy a sacred site that's thousands and thousands of years old. But there should never be the opportunity for a developer to sell off a piece of our art for $27 million. That there should always be an opportunity for cities and counties and other places to be able to give land back. Because land back is not just a movement of here. It's a worldwide movement. It's a consciousness awareness that is happening worldwide. And that we're creating tools as we go. But we need the state to help us to figure this out, if this is truly about healing. And we can't take that $633 check that was given to us in the 1970s and think that that helped us. And when we started this whole work around land trust and the Lashawn people, I own a Habitat for Humanity home, and my auntie owns a home on 40th Avenue. Those are the only two homes owned by Lashawn people. That we own no businesses, we own no park, we had no parkland, we had no churches, we had no places like that to bring in business, that we had definitely been wiped out. And yet it is our responsibility to educate everyone in our territory. And I really appreciate what Canyon said, is that how do we do that? Because we do all of the AB 52 stuff, the SB 18 stuff, the 106 stuff, the 168 stuff. We do that without resources because we know it's our responsibility. Where are the resources for the non-federally recognized tribe to continue to do that? We're blessed because we have Sogorea Land Trust and collaboration to do that, but not all non-federally recognized tribes have those resources. We're blessed because we have a group of teachers that have now come together to create curriculum across districtly, because we can't be the ones that are always going to tell the story. And that's something that's been worked on for, I don't know, Greg Castro has been working on education stuff for 30 or 40 years. And so we can't continue to wait for that to happen. We have to make our own resources. But then we have to also talk about other big picture things, because as human beings, we're all looking at climate disaster. And as we're looking at climate disaster, we, as the indigenous people from this bay, this area, have to look at what is it doing to the waterways that have already been destroyed, that we cannot fish out of, that has been destroyed so that pregnant women are told that they could only eat the size of their hand from fish that come out of our bay once a month, that children cannot eat that fish. That is, we were fishermen. Our livelihoods, the way we ate was along this bay that we cannot sustain ourselves on. That we have migrant people that are coming in here that are doing the same kind of thing, trying to sustain their families on fishing out of the bay and are poisoning themselves. That we do not have our traditional oysters and clams here anymore. That's a part of ecocide, another part of genocide. That we don't have access to growing the fruitfulness of and abundance of our people. Our songs were always about abundance. And I had a nephew that I had a conversation with, and he talked about how it was that when our songs here were these songs of abundance and thank you for so much, which is different from places that have harsh winters, and we're asking for help in their songs. It was not true here in this place. That's why people make this their home, because of the temperatures here, because it's so nice, right? We don't have access to being able to. Until we got the land rights, we did not have access to gathering our own foods and medicines. It was because of the land trust that people started stepping up and asking if they could help. But for Janella knows, for 30 years while we were doing this work, there wasn't that happening. We fought against East Bay Regional Park District. We could not go there and camp at any of the sites without doing a public event, what I call a song and dance, right, for the general public, so that we could be there. We did these walks around the Bay Area. We started in Vallejo and walked down to San Jose and up to San Francisco, stopping at shell mounds that were desecrated underneath railroad tracks and bars and parking lots and schools. And that we know where those places are. And it's still, there's nothing that says that we're still here. But in our territory, there's not one place that you can come and learn about us, which is why there's a dream of having something like that at the West Berkeley Shellmount. But that, it shouldn't just fall on us. It's the state's responsibility as well to be able to tell those and have those places that are rich. Where are those places? Why is it that all of us in California, when you fly in, it tells you all the colonized names, but it doesn't name the indigenous people as you're coming in to those airports? Why is that? Why doesn't it say in Oakland, welcome to LaShawn territory? Or in San Francisco, welcome to Ramaytush? Those are easy fixes. Why can't we change it? I was just in Hawaii and all of the streets are named in their languages. Why can't that be here? Because Americans have lazy tongues and they don't want to learn. There are so many of us. I see my nephew here who speaks 4 or 5 different languages. That he's bringing those languages back. That language is made from the land. And that land and those waters and those airs and those trees that are ancient are yearning to hear our languages spoken again. They're yearning for that first language that's here. Canyon talked about the 200 different languages in California, one of the most linguistically diverse places in the world. And yet those languages aren't here. And where are the resources to bring those languages back? That these universities and these state education departments should be reaching out to the tribes and offering those assistances to bring those languages home, so that there is a way for us to do that. And that we know that when language comes back and those songs come back and that ceremony comes back and those feet are on the ground dancing, this earth becomes healed again. My ancestors have been here for thousands of years. And we were enslaved at Mission Dolores, but we are not from San Francisco. We know where we're from. That we know that where our village sites are and how we were pulled from all of those village sites into these many different prison systems that we helped to create. And I think that that's an important part of history, is that people that go and learn about 4th grade history and get to make these mission models, that it wasn't the Spanish that built those missions, it was our family members. And that when you can see their fingerprints in the adobe walls that are still there, that it has to mean something. The history is not told in that kind of way, and I think that I'm hoping that us telling this truth and healing, that it really is healing. I've been telling the truth for my whole life, and I don't want my grandchildren to continue to tell these stories. But every time we have to tell these stories, it brings up the trauma. It's pulling off the Band-Aid. And I will rip off that Band-Aid every single day, so long as my grandchildren don't have to continue to rip that Band-Aid off. We participate in these things that are hard because we want to make sure that those next generations don't have it as hard. And I don't have it as hard as my mother did, who was forced into an orphanage that was run by the mission, by the nuns, or my auntie and uncle that went to Chimawa boarding school. And my auntie who tells a story of her going to work for a nice white family in San Leandro who wanted to put her through school. She worked from Chimawa she went from Chimawa to them as a worker, and that she was too dark to go to school in San Leandro in 1950. We want to tell those stories. We want to tell the stories that we are dancing again on our sacred sites, and that the abundance of our acorn is here, and that we're feeding the people, and that our language and songs are coming back in our dreams, and that we're making relationships with people that want all of these good things to happen. And so when we talk about healing, we don't want this book to be on a shelf. that we don't want to be known as unrecognized people, because our ancestors continuously recognize us. That the state of California has to be better in creating laws that protect our sacred places, allows us to get our ancestors back, gives us land in order to rebury, make sure that we can take care of our bay, because we are on these commission meetings trying to figure out how do we do that, how do we stop the flooding, because they infilled the coast of California and the water is going to come up back to its original coastline. But as it does that, all of these factories and all of these places that are polluting along the bay will go underwater, polluting the bay even more, disallowing us from being able to feed off of the bay that was put here to take care of us for thousands and thousands of years. And we don't understand that even under this place is a waterway that has been culverted, that all of our creeks where our salmon and steelhead trout came up are gone and can not be imagined because streets that are less than 200 years are built over it. That there has to be a way for us to figure out how do we coexist in a way that allows us to thrive.
Okay. So, again, if there's anyone who's California native who's from this region who'd like to speak at this time, hand off the mic. Otherwise, we can go around. Yeah. Sun's still up.
I appreciate the triggers. How do we heal the pain that some of our community members who don't have access to culture and land, but also practices? We're salmon people, and we haven't been given or taught or get a chance to sing our salmon songs. We are acorn people, and the closest we get is Oak Grove, or these areas that get named after these things that get cleared. And so one common thing that I used to think of when working in all of these unique circles, visiting a classroom over here on this day, going to a cultural site on this day, and talking to a permaculture class on this day, talking to a psychedelic psychonaut over this conversation, I'm seeing a common occurrence of how a lot of silos are operating, and they all seem to have similar values, yet they're not connecting. Like gleaning, where we salvage and save things from grocery stores. With a permaculture course who talks about fire mimicry. Fire mimicry because we can't have fire on the land because it's not safe because we don't have a burn boss to help with liabilities. Let's streamline strategies to get indigenous peoples getting the burn boss certifications. Or reminding community that we are our own trainers and teachers in these realms, because a lot of CAL FIRE people come to us and talk to us saying, by the way, you being a fire cultural practitioner with your traditional ecological knowledge, you don't have to do those things. We come to you to learn from you. And the things that we don't know because we've been oppressed by a system that says you need to follow these rules to get to that thing, yet in all actuality sometimes it's just a matter of just ask. And we don't even give ourselves the freedom of just ask. And so where are the cheat codes or the community members who can help with those intriguing bypasses? But when I talked about the permaculture class of creating like a lime wash, if we can't have fire, fine. We'll brush off the moss, put a lime wash, and that can take the milk that most grocery stores should be dumping out, trashing, putting locks on their garbage bins. This bad behavior needs to be checked. And so not just help empower the Native peoples or give resources to Native peoples, help us combat the issues that are occurrences that happen to be crimes against nature, crimes against the rights of nature. When it comes to United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, like we need the communities simultaneously to help educate everybody and speed up the process of honoring truth and history, so catch everybody up, and then remind them about Indigenous pedagogies of all of our responsibilities. Because the way I put it when I visit these classrooms and these spaces, when you think about it, when you honor your elders, your ancestors, we all have indigenous lineages from the land of our ancestors, meaning we all can honor our indigeneity. We can all honor those indigenous pedagogies of the land of our ancestors, even if the many diverse bloodlines that we carry. However, if you're not on the land of your ancestors, and you are visitors, you are guests, you have settled on a land that is not of all of your ancestors, that means how are you being accountable and how are you being a good guest? And part of that is remembering your indigenous lineage's responsibility to the rights of nature and being a good ancestor in training. And so you can tap any of your skills. For the introverts who like to hang out on the computer, y'all can go at it in a unique way of typing and engaging the community. And for the extroverts who are like jump in front of people, all right, let's tap that opportunity. For the cool people who know the ins and outs of the legal system, all right, let's align those values to those things and get some of these things done. Because I've been inspired with visiting Hawaii and also going to New Zealand, where like instead of exploiting culture or trying to tap what cultural means of creativity like cultural tourism, they actually own a greater portion of the docks and they just have the settlers pay rent. Gee, that's a beautiful financial economic development right there. Instead of having to feel as though we have to, because I can be rich by exploiting and capitalizing off of my culture. I don't want to. And I see these woo-woo circles of people who, like I see people who have indigenous ancestry who are exploiting their own ancestors or they're exploiting their neighbors. Because, if there's a desert native for some reason, they're doing an ayahuasca ceremony over there, they're doing rape over there, they're trying to do a peyote church ceremony over here. I'm like, what nation are you? And they're probably like, I'm Ojibwe over here. I'm like, whoa, slow down. Indigeneity is not a monolith. And so how do we work on healing that? How do we check our own community? How do we check the intertribal politics going on? Because like, I have dreams. I have dreams of like seeing how our communities can have these talking circles and help navigate what issues do we have and how do we get past it. And I'm not trying to like get over it, get past it. I'm just trying to say, let us air these grievances and these pains and these challenges, because in all honesty, I've made a parallel, and it's a broad brushstroke. If the First Nations peoples in New Zealand, the Maori relatives who have traditional beef, they're territorial, they're ready to go out there, they are strong, they're a warring community, they're like, this is our territory, back up. If they have traditional beef, and they can come to a table, they can come to a circle, and they can come to a marae, and have ceremony and say, this is what it means to have economic development for our peoples and save our peoples from addiction and problematic occurrences. What does it mean for us as California Indigenous peoples to be able to come to a circle that is a post-colonial issue, a post-injustice, where a foreign governing structure comes and says, you need to prove who you are and validate who you are. And we all are navigating intergenerational trauma, historical trauma, fighting amongst each other over scraps. And that's a post-contact issue. So if our relatives in our territory can get over a traditional beef, or at least find ways to navigate that healing, we definitely can on a younger group. Because I don't really like the idea of a foreign government saying, you need to prove who you are, when the only other institution that validates the whole blood quantum BS is the American Kennel Club. The American Kennel Club of validating pedigree is the only other institution, like the BIA, who validates blood quantum, and that's a whole other construct. So validating who we are, how we show up in community, we need means of helping each other and aligning those values. So one, help out. What things exist to help us heal on the inside and together in community, and other ones of honoring truth and history, catching people up, and then the standards going forward to change this bad behavior of allowing waste, capitalism, materialism, disposable society, and all these problematic behaviors just go, well, it's business as usual, waste management, it's what we do. It's just so these are at 7 and 3 and 4 are sacred numbers. So those, honor the past to shape the future. But how do we honor catching everybody up, being present, accounting, healing, and navigating going forward in a good way? So how to add that little extra sugar there. And are there any other California Indigenous relatives here?
I have one more.
Yeah, I wanted to let the California Indigenous relative know that the California Indigenous voices are allowed to talk.
I just got a quick thing because I forgot that you changed names. So you work on changing names.
Oh yeah.
So okay, so Mount Diablo, Mount Diablo, Devil's Mountain gotta go. Mount Snider-Ashtari is our place of creation. So just putting that in your cap to think about when you're starting to think about changing names or helping us out.
Well, I'll drop it in the spreadsheet as an open case, and you'll get in touch.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Ho Joseph Inyawek, I Watukum no Mehek, Ukshish Mulhant no Akomal, Wailil, Ampel Ditang. Hello everyone, my name is Joseph Byron. I am with Bukum Notum. My ancestral homelands are in the lands that are currently known as Mendocino County. We are misnomered as Yuki. Ayahke Jahnuwa Asito Jan Hodinke Batinkle Jawik Jamai Ashaya Jamai Habemato Jamai Wato Kanimahcha. What I said also is I am now speaking in Ayahke Jahnu, which is another of my family's languages, known as Southern Pomo. I come from the villages of Batinklechawi, which is now known as Sebastopol. I also come from the village of Kalle, which is near Healdsburg, and Awikedono Tsuno, the mountain known as Fitch Mountain, we call Tsuno. That's the correct name, not Fitch Mountain. I also come from the Kashaya and Habematol folks from Lake County and from the coast. Vanyeheka Iniko, Tupe Peta Lumamu, Yoleta Malmu. Me and my family were also indigenous people from Bodega Bay area and Petaluma. We come from the village of Petaluma and Bodega area. There's several villages there that my family also descend from. So I come from these places, but I want to share a little bit of our Watukum Notum folks. Back when in the 1800s and the mid 1850s, when California was just a baby, technically it still is, but in comparison to our indigenous people, but California's first Supreme Court judge, Serenus Hastings, when he was going and touring our homelands in the valley of Witukum, where my family come from, he saw that land and he wanted it for to build his cattle ranch there. And so he used state funds to hire militias like he did throughout the state, but primarily for his family to be able to benefit off that genocide in those lands, so that way he can have a ranch there and live. So my great-great-grandfather was a teenager during that time when he came in, and he had two sisters and his mom, and two maternal uncles that actually were some of the only survivors of that massacre. And from there, the militias and the American government marched them over the ridge line, the mountain range, into what is now known as Round Valley Indian Reservation. Originally, before Round Valley got its name, Round Valley, or the Round Valley Indian Reservation, it was known as the Nome Cult Farm. And where that comes from is the term Nomkel. Nomkel is the actual term that the Nomlaka called our people. So, we know, us as indigenous people, we know that, folks like Krober and other archaeologists and ethnologists and linguists, they would go to different tribes and say, what do you call the people over there? And do you have a name for them? And so the Nomlaka, when I'm drawing a blank on the guy, but when he went into the Nomlaka homelands, or Nomlaki homelands, he asked them, what do you call those folks over there? And they said Nomkel, which means like West language, or West house, West speakers, something like that. And so they documented that, and then somehow down the line they ended up finding out the name Yuki, also coming from the Nomlaka language, but it actually means the enemy. And so they're like, I don't know how that shift came about, but they ended up taking out Nomkel and identifying us, or misnomering us as Yuki, the enemy. And so since then, in linguistic works and other archaeological surveys and different documentation, our people had that name Yuki applied to us since the late 1800s, mid to late 1800s. And I don't know if the Americans couldn't say Nomkel, but they ended up saying Nom Cult for the place where we were from, or some of our relative tribes. And so Serenus Hastings, Judge Hastings, ended up building his ranch there with Uklom, or they also named that Eden Valley in Mendocino County. And so ever since then, from that moment when my great-grandfather was a teenager and they were marched into Uklom homelands, Round Valley, we haven't been able to go back to our ancestral homelands. And so like Auntie Christina mentioned, our languages, they live in the lands, they live in the waters, they live in the plants and animals that live there, that are indigenous and endemic to those lands. Our languages live there, and so we don't have a fluent speaker of our language, but I'm working to change that. And it's a long process. It's a long process for many reasons. But I know that's something that I was told that I needed to do at a young age by my ancestors through dreams and stuff. And so I just want to thank Auntie Christina for allowing us to be in this space on your lands, your homelands, and I'm trying to think if there was something else. There was something else that I wanted to say, but I do want to maybe type something up and be able to share that, to add that to the report. And then there's also some other place names that I would love to help with the changing of throughout our homelands, from Marin County all the way up to Mendocino, Lake County, and then in any other homelands that I can assist in. But yeah, I feel like that's so important to be acknowledging, because I too have just returned back from Hawaii, and being able to see what's going on, the work, the beautiful work that our Kanaka relatives are doing, and just seeing their language everywhere is so inspiring and healing. And so I think that's part of what needs to happen here, for our healing as well. We need our languages to wake up within all of us, within the lands, the waters, because when we speak our languages, to our lands that we belong to, not the other way around, they react in a way that they remember, like, oh, I remember you. And one thing that I just remembered, my Krober, when he was a professor here in Berkeley, he sent out a student to go speak with one of our elders who was Ukumnotum in Round Valley, or in Covelo, the town of Covelo. And so when his student, George Foster, went to this elder, he said, I was sent by Krober to come and ask you questions. And this elder, he said, go back to Krober. He already asked me all those questions. I don't want to answer them again, pretty much. And so, so George Foster wrote a letter to Krober and said, told him what had happened. And Krober said, well, find someone else. So he began looking on the res, trying to find someone else that is willing to share. And he came across my great-great-grandfather, who had lived through that initial contact from Snider-Hastings and the militias and all that in the late 1850s. And so when he had approached him, my grandpa was willing to share, was willing to talk with him. And he said, you sit next to me. I'm gonna watch you write, because you have to write everything that I say word for word. And I'm gonna make sure that you get it correct, because my great-great-grandchildren and my great-great-great-grandchildren are gonna need your writings to wake up our language again. So he was already knowing what was gonna happen, with our languages. They were gonna be starting to go to sleep. And so I wanna, emphasize that, our languages don't die. Our languages do not disappear. They just go to sleep. But, we need to wake them up. And so during that time, my grandfather was in his 70s. And so George Foster actually was able to somehow get my grandfather back with Ukum in that valley. And I remember reading some of the letters that was corresponding back and forth from George Foster and Krober, and it said that my grandpa felt so good that words in English couldn't even describe how it felt. To be back in those lands, to be back home. And he said that the lands and the water there, the flowers, the birds, the butterflies, all that he could see, all those relatives, they recognized him and they knew that it was one of their children that was returning. And so right now, part of our homelands is national forest. Part of our homelands is privately owned by very wealthy private landowners. Some own casinos, non-native casinos. And there are no easy access to these lands. And so, I have elders that are still around that are with Bukom Notum. And I I have nieces, and I have grandnieces and nephews, and so it's very important for me to help my family and the rest of our community be able to go back and have access to those lands, and I feel like that's part of the healing that needs to happen as well. But I feel like we're on a course for that to happen. But how our ancestors willing and spirit willing, to make that happen. But I'll just stop there for now and ask Auntie.
Real quick, so that something that you've been talking about and your path have reminded me is that under a lot of laws, certain characters aren't allowed to be included in like place names or in copyrights or in things like that. And so if we're reintroducing our languages into a structure and a system that isn't built for them, we need to disentangle those systems so that our languages can actually be accommodated. And as we reintroduce those things, we need to be able to protect them, because we know that people think being native is real cool now. And so just flagging that, especially for the name change piece, where it's like, how can we get names changed if we can't actually change them to their actual names?
So I'm not going to try to say it because you said it so beautifully, but I see on your hat an IPA glottal stop. For anyone who doesn't know, that's the question mark without a dot on the bottom. And I actually recently confirmed with the staff of the U.S. Board on Geographic Names that we can use that character in official names on the national map. It's not listed in the regulations. There's a few, like Yokina, which is pronounced about the same way, that you could use as a substitute, but the tribe that I'm working with on this particular restoration wanted to use that, and so we're working towards what Christina just said. I know there's a lot more, but I think that eventually, we will get to the point with technology, because one of the reasons why special characters are rejected is because they sometimes mess up databases. And but I think that the technology is improving to where that particular barrier is falling away. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm not native here, but I come from the Dakotas. My question is that I learned from a friend that the Round Valley, it wasn't just your people that were marched in there, that there were other tribal nations marched in there. And do you know of them, or is there anyone here that came in there? And maybe you could speak, because I'd like to honor them also.
Thank you for that question. Yes, there were roughly 10 plus tribes that were marched from different parts of the state into the Nomkel farm, later known as Round Valley. Some of them are still there. There is a community of various tribes that are still within our homelands, but ancestrally our Atat, or our people's homelands, encompass from where Lake Pillsbury sits right now, all the way up past Round Valley, and then as far west as the ocean, with some areas of Caddo folks in between there in Laytonville. But yeah, to kind of, I guess, answer your question, yes, there are still a lot of folks that live there in our homelands, that live there in Round Valley. I guess the American government, they wanted to have a corral to bring all the natives that they could and put them in that place, and then have the army, surrounding this corral, aka this reservation or concentration camp, and hoping that we would just kill each other off, or do away with each other in some way, or at least to have a single place to have the militias come in and try and wipe us out, without having to go too far, so part of my other lineage that I had mentioned, from Bodega Bay area, they were actually marched into Round Valley. Our different Pomo folks were marched into Round Valley. Those ancestors actually escaped, and they were successful in going back to their homelands. And then, some, I guess, spirit just was like, no, you need to, your people and the Wipukumnotum people need to reconnect, because I ended up, my ancestors, I ended up coming, but, I don't know, does that kind of answer your question? Oh, so the other nations the other indigenous people that were marched were Miwok from the Sierra foothills, from Yosemite, some as far as there. There's various Maidu folks that were marched, Pomo, Coast Miwok, Lake Miwok, Wapo, Pit River from the various bands, Wailaki, Nomlaka, other Wintun groups, what else? Kato, and then Shasta, and different folks from up north, further north. All these people were some of the people that were marched into our homelands. Some of them are still there. Some of them have returned home to their homes, but we still have a large group of folks from various tribes that are still in our area.
Hit it. Hoyo Ishnam, Darlene Franco. Nata Inyana, Wukchumni. Nata Hechi, Nimhonhon, Itewish Hechi. I'm very happy to be here today. My name is Darlene Franco, and I am from the Central Valley near Tulare County, and I'm from the Wukchumni people, but also I descend from a long line of my ancestors are from all over in the area. So, for instance, he was just talking that my grandfather's family came from the Paiute over in Owens Valley, and they were marched all the way down into Kern County to Port Tejon area. And then from Port Tejon, my great-grandfather ended up at Tule River. So I have ancestors from all of that area, Paiute, Bangalachi, Yalamni, and then on my grandfather's side were Yadanchi and Wukchumni and Machahai. So a lot of different tribal people that I descend from. But I say Wukchumni because I live on the land of the Wukchumni, and that's where I'm living now. My father's people came from the Philippine Islands, so I don't live there. But when I say Wukchumni, it's because that's where I'm living at. And it's true, the land speaks to us in our language, the plants speak to us, the animals speak to us, and we need to make sure that our minds and our hearts are open to receive that. Our languages are not dead. Languages may be sleeping, they may be dormant, what they call dormant, but it's coming back. Our songs are coming back, our dances have been coming back, ceremonies have been coming back. After so many years of being told you can't do that, you can't be native, or making it very hard When my mom was brought up, her and my uncle, they were the oldest in a family of 7. They traveled from Fresno County to Tulare County. So their trek was about maybe 60 to 80 miles that they would travel. It would take them a week, but you know, they talked about that being the happiest times of their lives because they learned how to live off the land. They learned about the different areas that they were traveling through because that's where their ancestors traveled through. They learned about the waterways. They learned about everything that was on the land there. So my paternal grandparents, they really wanted to instill culture and traditions. So they did. But on my mom's maternal grandfather, he wanted them to learn the white man's ways because it was too hard to be native. And it was. And he wanted to protect his children. So she got both in her life. But anyway, I'm happy because I'm here on this land. I'm happy for the people here. I'm happy that the ancestors of this land, the spirits of this land have welcomed us all here. And I'm happy for the Lashon people that they're able to have this land and have this area to call their own. My heart is happy to hear him speaking so many languages because we don't hear that often. And he's learning. And he is going to be fluent one day. You know, he's talking, you know, he says that confident that he will. Anyway, I came here because I wanted to be here. I wanted to visit and see the work that's been done in the Bay Area. I'm real happy to see our young sister over here, where she's at, with all that she's doing, you know, and the people that she's working with. That just makes me proud because, you know, for so long our people have been told to shut up and be quiet, and, you know, if it wasn't for people like these ladies or these men that we see here speaking up, you know, we would have just kind of just faded into the background. If it wasn't for people like my mom and my grandma and other relatives, you know, we would have just faded into the background, but we didn't. And my mom was like the same way, that she fought for us so that we wouldn't have to deal with some of the discriminations that she faced. She went to boarding school. She was a boarding school survivor. She only attended up to 8th grade when she was first going to school. Then she stopped to help her family, you know, to help raise family, to work. She learned how to birth, so she was a midwife with her grandma. So that's what they did. They went around and they helped ladies do those kind of things, and they helped just keep our families together. But after she raised her family, there's 8 of us. She went back to school. You know, she got her education. She became a teacher. So there's a silver lining to everything that we do. We just have to decide what we want to do. We have programs in Visalia. We have access to land. We don't own it, but we have access to land where we are farming. During the pandemic, we've seen that there weren't food on the shelves like we were used to going to the grocery stores and buying foods. That wasn't happening, and people were hoarding the foods, hoarding everything. So we decided we needed to start farming and growing our own food for our people. So that's what we did. We started farming, we started growing mostly vegetables and foods that we could eat, but then it grew to growing, reintroducing our basketry plants, reintroducing some of our medicinal plants. So that's what we have. We've expanded to, we have a nursery now. And we have chickens, so we're also distributing eggs and things. We also have a youth program, and our youth program is titled Healing Our Youth to Heal Our Future. And so that's what we're doing. We're really instilling culture in them. We have summer programs, after school programs. We're really instilling the culture. They go to ceremony at least twice a year. They have summer programs where they're seeing their cousins. We're also not federally recognized, so they don't see their cousins on a daily basis except for the program. But we don't tie into that non-federally recognized because we recognize ourselves. You know, the federal government may not recognize us, but we recognize ourselves and we recognize each other. So those are the kind of things that we need to live for because that's what's going to make us stronger. So supporting places like this, supporting programs, you know, like our language learners, our you know, people that are sharing culture and keeping our culture alive, that's what we're here to do. I also sit on the committee for the status and identity. I started attending those committee meetings, but then I had some health issues with my husband, so I had to stopped going to those meetings, so I plan to get back on that. But, I encourage everybody to make sure that you put your letters in to help put this report together to the state with, changes that we need to see made. And maybe it's not federal recognition, state recognition. There's a lot of stuff in California that can be done, that in local recognition. But I'm happy to be here today, and I'm very thankful for your words and for what you stand for and what you've done here. And
Hello, Justin. Anybody, you guys hear me? Hi, my name is Caesar, you guys. Documented Miwok for several generations into the late 1700s. My fifth great grandmother is linked to, many others mentioned, Mission Dolores. Which, I have an ancestor from there too. And the people that have spoken already is very special, and I appreciate their words a lot. I don't wish to replace anything that they've said. However, I wanted to mention something that I'm not hearing very much about, is that the Madam Secretary of the Interior ordered an investigation. It goes back 3 or 4 years now, and she just recently released a statement that says that the first phase of the investigation is done, and that it's supposed to be available. I'm also a member of Truth and Identity, the same council that my neighbor here just mentioned, and I'd ask that the organizers of those councils please make those reports available, because other than Madam Secretary saying that the reports are, the first phase of the reports have been finished and they're available, they've not been seen by my eyes and by many other eyes. We don't even know what they are, but it'd be nice if we could. Excuse me? The boarding school reports, yes.
Those are both published.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah. If our status and identity they could be made available to us, you're probably right. They're published. Maybe they're right in front of me, but I haven't seen them, and I haven't heard them talked about in our status and identity. And I know that Madam Secretary, she also ordered tribal affiliations that were recorded on those students. And I know that the tribal affiliations on my grandfather and his brothers and sisters were, the tribal affiliations were also recorded there. And I'm very curious to see if it makes the report, and see what kind of report we're looking at that was actually done. And my statement, saying that I got a fifth great grandmother from Mission Dolores. It's documented. The lady lived 176 years old when she finally passed away. She was witnessed by the Smithsonian Institute and Mission Dolores themselves. They put out a statement that was her age. Her husband helped build Mission Dolores. In the article it says it was built in 1776. And I have that article available if anybody wants to see it. However, the reports from the Madam Secretary, would be nice of status and identity, if we could have them available to us, so that we could, include them in our letters, in our writings. My letters and writings have went in, and I'm not going to go over them again. Like I said, the people that have spoken are very special, and I don't want to replace anything that they've said, but I wanted to ask about that report. And that's all I have to say.
So, we're having folks who are California native speak at this time. I do want to mention that we do have a council member present, and you don't have to say anything if you don't want.
I have the small ones.
But just a reminder that if any California native people want to speak at this time. I also want to mention that the reports that were just mentioned are the first and second reports of the investigation on Indian boarding schools that the federal government just undertook. They just released the second volume. I encourage you all to take a look at it. It has a lot of extensive information. If you look at the California boarding schools though, and you look at the tribal identities, it's not quite, I wouldn't think it's complete, and so it's a good start, but I encourage you all to take a look at those as well.
are they available?
They're available at the Department of Interior website. We'll send the link around after this meeting.
Appreciate it.
I'd like to ask clarification about renaming sites. Is that just at state parks or is it broader than that?
Yeah, I lead the process at state parks on renaming features and facilities that are within the parks. Features being geographic, things like hills, and facilities being things like trails, campgrounds, etc. So it's very often a package with both, and there's different authorities over everything. It's very complicated. I do. But I can also help with other things because I've become something of an expert on the process. And also on the federal committee I serve on, we can recommend derogatory words that should not be removed from the map, and also for federal land units like national parks, national monuments, if there's a name that should be removed by secretaries. So in general, yeah, I'm probably a good person to ask if you're trying to change the name of it. But within state parks, I'll actually lead the process.
So if there's no additional California Native folks wanting to come forward, I do want to have a moment for everybody to introduce themselves and be allowed to say something. You have something you'd like to say, so I'm going to be passing it around. At a minimum, I'd like for folks to at least introduce themselves so that everyone knows who's here. And then if you'd like to share anything, you can as well.
I've been at a meeting before, so I'm not going to take a lot of time. I really appreciate you two, California Native Sisters, putting in the work here. It's not easy, you know. This is a huge. I hope you guys are taking care of yourself, and we'll be keeping you guys in our prayers because we still talk about you. When we first met these women, we're realizing like we share family, and also they share family from Dry Creek community and us from down south. Let me introduce myself. Haisawame Kecheleaka, Hauka Memutemwa. My name is John Kunkel. I am Hiaki Yoeme, also known as Yaki, and I'm also reconnecting to my Ipai lineage, which is also known as Northern Kumeyaay. Some call us Northern Degueño. Degueño is our slave name, and so that's in relation to San Diego mission. And so I'm far away from home, but I'm grateful to be here on Lishan homelands, and Hiokwe Otesia Enti for having us here. And yeah, I'm just really grateful to be here and watching the work that's being done. A little bit about myself and my family. We're survivors of the Warner Ranch and San Felipe Ranch Indian removals that took place in East San Diego County in 1902 and 1903, which is very late, and it's a sad history that I don't think has been told to its fullest, and it affected Ipai, Kumeyaay, which is desert, and Northern Kumeyaay, Kupangowichum, which is Kupa people, Hayonkowichum, which is Liseño, and also Kuya folks, and some Hiaki or Yaki ancestors that migrated there, settled there, and got affected by the same genocide. So hopefully I can put a report together to get that in there. From my perspective, I don't speak on behalf of all these tribes that I mentioned, and just trying to be as inclusive as possible. And I would love to help with the status and identity. I feel like that's a huge part of my own personal struggle, and the struggle that I shared with my my mother and my grandmother and my great-grandmother, all the way on to our ancestors. And we were told that we weren't from California. We were told that we were just Mexicans and that we were Spanish. And then I kept asking those questions ever since I was a young boy about who are we, where are we from, who are we, how are we related to all these relatives on San Isabel and Mesa Grande and San Pasqual reservations. And Los Coyotes reservations and Hamul, how those are relations? How are we not from here? And we were just trying to survive. And so when those removals happened on Warner's Ranch and San Felipe Ranch, majority of the people were taken to Paula Indian Reservation, very similar to the Round Valley situation, but it was Paula. Paula was our Round Valley down there. And a lot of our family, a good amount of our family was taken, and our ancestors fled to the mountains and hid away. And some settled on Los Coyotes Reservation, some settled on Mesa Grande and San Isabel in secrecy, and others went into the towns and started speaking Spanish and saying that they were Mexican just to survive. And that's our story, and I've been documenting our history and our lineage for well over a decade, and I'm continuing to do that work because that's my passion, that's my heart work, that's my calling. And like I said, I don't want to take up too much time, but I'm just grateful to be here. And Hiokoe Tesia, Ohai, Iehan, to our relatives here for putting this all together for us to be here. And thank you for everyone sharing all your good words here. It's very healing. And any other California Native representation here who has not spoke yet, I get to hand this off to you.
Mishistu, Inkoto Makam, Isaac Bojorquez. Want to say thank you. Karina, it's good to see you. It's good to be here in your ancestral territories. It's been quite a few years. I didn't know if it was picking me up right now.
Oh, yeah, a little bit closer.
So it's just really good to see you. I know it's been since Breath of Life. I heard so much about language revitalization. That's where you met at Breath of Life. And I don't know if I share it in this body, but I know I share it quite often. And I don't know if you remember when we first went and they opened up those archives for all the baskets. And we're like, where are our baskets? And they were like, there are no baskets. So we got one basket, right? And come to find out, no, there's a lot more baskets of our ancestors that are there within those archives. And so it's just really good to see you be here in your ancestral territory. I know I cut my introduction off a little earlier, but I'm Isaac Bojorquez. I am a council member for the Truth and Healing Council. I'm just here in a listening capacity today. I'm sorry for my tardiness, but got out of work a little bit later than what I wanted to and hit some traffic. So I am Ohlone Costanoan. I'm down in the Carmel or the Monterey area from Carpuntaruk. I'm currently serving as the chair for the Carpuntaruk band of the Ohlone Costanoan Indians of the Big Sur Rancheria. My wife likes to joke with me and say, you have to say amen after that because it's so long. Hearing so much about land and getting back to things, like, I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but that is my tribe's goal as well. That's for my children, for my nieces, nephews, for my cousins, is being able to put our hands into the dirt and be able to work things and be able to bring things back. And revitalize our language. It's a good thing to do. Like so many others, we do not have a fluent speaker. It's just rough. We have technology to kind of help things along, but we're plugging along. So it's just really good to be here. And again, sorry for my tardiness, and look forward to hearing everyone else and what you have to share today. Please share, please write. It will impact the report. I know a lot of times it's easy to kind of say, well, what will my voice do? It only takes one. And imagine putting all of our voices together when we say, this is what we would like to see. This is how we think that we can heal, right? Getting our place names back, right? I've heard that in so many different areas throughout the state that we've gone through, is we would all like to see that, see our language and our place names back for our sacred mountains, for our sacred places, for our villages, right? How beautiful would that be for other Californians and visitors to California to be able to see our language in our areas? So thank you again, and we'll pass it on.
Okay, so we're gonna pass it around, and you can share as much or as little as you like. And I think the point here is just making sure we know who all is here. And if you don't want to say much, you can just say who you are and pass on.
Hi everyone, I'm Shalini Pendon, and I am here because I work with the State Postal Conservancy, a state agency, and I've just been really happy to hear from everybody here and honored to witness all the stories being shared. So thank you for hosting, and thanks Karina and the Confederated Villages of the Show for hosting.
Hello, relatives. Janine Antoine Imachia Binaha. Asampi Tipi Himataha. My name is Janine Antoine, and I come from Milk's Camp, the camp of Chief Cane Milk in Milk's Camp, South Dakota. I've been in the Bay Area since 1973, maybe? Longer than most of you have years. But, you know, I still recognize that I am a visitor, like so many people that are here, and I'm so happy to be here today to hear all the work and activity and hopes and dreams of our people who are from here. I didn't hear all of your talk, Karina, so I'm hoping to listen to the recording. But what you have to share is very, very inspirational, and it's not a unique story. It's the same story that happened from the east all the way across. And, you know, the people are different, but the story has always been the same. It only took a decade to destroy millions and millions of buffalo and decimate all the plains populations that were here. And that has been the strategy since colonizers arrived here. So we have to remember that, you know, that there are inspirational people that are doing amazing work, like with the Kanaka Maoli and the Maori, and you know, we have people to inspire us from far away and from here as well. I mean, some of the work that is being done here is really exciting and inspirational, and I really want to applaud the work that's happening and everything that you've done here to carry on the culture, to revive it, to recognize that everything is sacred. The Treaty Council, who I work for part-time, is hosting a meeting next week called Bring Back the Sacred, Bring Home the Sacred, to talk about repatriation of sacred objects that were taken away from Native peoples and human remains. And we know that that's a big, big topic and concern here, where that happens so much, you know, right up the road. But, you know, there are so many other sacred things that have been taken and not restored. So to see people working on language regeneration and living in a sacred manner, I think is really, really important. So whatever I can do to help that, I appreciate being included and invited, and just want to say I'm all ears. So thank you much. Plus, Tony and I are on Bay Native Circle Radio, so if you want to have a wider audience and get on, Karina helped us start it, but she got too busy. So we always appreciate having her come on now. So Wopilatanka, thank you.
For folks who haven't seen it, this is going to sound weird, but a great visual about the buffalo is in the Alien movie Prey. If anyone hasn't seen it, it's actually really quite good, and it's being released, if it hasn't already been released, already in the native language as well. So I don't think you could find it in the theaters, but it's a good movie.
Hi everyone, I'm Tessa Salzman. Thank you for having me here. I'm here in a listening and learning capacity. I work for the Strategic Growth Council, and I support an effort called the Agricultural Land Equity Task Force. So that is partially what brought me here, and also just in a personal capacity interested in supporting anything I can do in support of land back efforts. So thanks again.
Good afternoon, my relatives. My name is Tony Gonzalez. I am Kumkaak. I am Kumkaak Chicano. And as Janine said, the stories that we're hearing are not unique. They're not just from east to the west, but the north to the south. And my people are from Sonora, actually from an island in the Sea of Cortez. It's called Isla Tiburon, Shark Island. we have a particular pact with the shark. We don't eat shark, shark don't eat us. But I host a radio show with Janine here from Berkeley. And I also have a TV show on Sundays. It's called Eagle and Condor. And I'm particularly interested in the report from Pacifica. I'd like to follow up on that.
Wounded Knee has told me to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you, my relatives.
If you haven't talked to them yet, there's a Maori iwi who has the same philosophy with the shark.
Good afternoon, all my relations. My name is Jose Cuellar, and I'm a Texas Mexican native, undocumented. With my great grandmother came Kickapoo, and my paternal ancestors came Huiltepec. There might be some Mixtec or Oaxacan somewhere. But I grew up as a Chicano, oriented to my indigenous heritage in Texas, and a lot of Comanche influence as I was growing up, because there's a lot of Comanches around me, some Lipan as well. And I came out here as a musician and wound up an anthropologist. I'm San Francisco State Professor Emeritus of Latino Studies, and also a member of the Mesoamerican Archive and Research Project at Harvard. And I've been studying indigenous instruments, especially the wind instruments, for the last 20 years. Before that, I did research at Stanford at the Gerontological Center on indigenous publications on indigenous aging, along with Chicano aging. And I'm here to learn as a visitor. Well, I was just trying to remember that well, I'm here. I've been here now since 1966. My relatives in Texas just say, "Hey, man, when are you gonna come home? You've been over there long enough." I've learned a lot here. I've adapted a lot, both in the South, taught the San Diego State, and then up here since I've been here since '84. And a number of years ago, when I was in the San Francisco Arts Council, I did not really appreciate the way they were dealing with the American indigenous experience and what they were doing with the funds that was dedicated to American Indian Cultural Center. And so I left the council, resigned, and I was at a meeting when Clyde Vancourt asked, "Ask yourself what you're doing here." And my answer was, "Oh, I'm here to help Tony." Okay? And so ever since I've been helping Tony as best I can. Usually just running shotgun with him to events like this and supporting him. So thank you very much for your patience and for your hospitality. And I've learned so much from you Californians that I really appreciate.
Hi everyone, I'm Laulani. Mahalo nui for the blessing of being able to be here today with all of you. Mahalo nui Corina and all of you from the Sogorea Land Trust and doing this amazing work. Miss Jan Olone Lands. We're so blessed as Kanaka Maoli to have this home to come and reconnect to, because we know that we've come from you and you've come from us, and we've been connected through Moana Nui for the longest time. Time before the scientists can remember, but we remember and we know. And mahalo, and when I see my brothers and my sisters from up and down this
edge of the shell of Mokuhonu or Turtle Island, you know, it's like we're reconnecting with long lost family, you know, that that we know that we've been connected through the ocean, through the canoes, through the sea creatures, you know, we still are connected to, and nowadays we're connected through helping each other out. And you know, I really mahalo. I see Corina and so many others here who've stood with us for our Mauna Kea, you know, and who've been there when we needed to stand up for our land. I just want to thank all of you so much for being part of that. You know, it's just a mountain out there in the middle of the great ocean, Moana Nui, but it is our mountain. It's all of our mountain. It's you know, it's the tallest point in Moana Nui, and it's the way that we know that that you found us and connected to us, and how we became part of you, and how you became part of us, and it means so much to us when you've stood with us. And you know, some folks have really stood, you know, for the University of California, and so many other things, and you know, continue that right now. I'm sorry to be a little dirty here, but you know, we're in the middle of another battle, as you folks have been in the middle of battles. You know, one of our many battles at this moment is over the protection of Moana Nui, that ocean that connects us all, because we've been fighting the U.S. military, who's going out there and bombing it and destroying it, along with 26 other countries, including Israel, including Japan, including so many others, you know. And we're just really grateful to have relatives on the other side of Moana Nui, who we know are standing in your own way for the ocean and the land and the water and all of those things, you know. I want to say to my Kumeya'i brother, mahalo. We went earlier to San Diego to fight RIMPAC, and which is the largest naval exercise in the world that just got finished in our land and in our water, that started out launching from Kumeya'i territory, coming, you know, towards us, and then, you know, did a lot of destruction. And we've decided to continue to like build against militarization everywhere. And this is that I'm speaking of is the weaving of a great mat, you know, that the way I see it is that each of our little fibers that we put into that, you know, by connecting all of our indigenous pieces of this great mat together, we're weaving this great mat or a net, you know, big fish net, big mat, and it has the capacity to throw off that blanket of colonialism all over the world. So I just really want to mahalo again, Corina, for being the awesome Mama Nui here to be able to pull all of us together once again. And I'm just sort of starting to understand the process that this hui right here is about. So please let me know however I can be of assistance, however I can help. We're here. I can speak for many other Kanaka Maoli too if you need us. We're you know, we're here when you need us, and mahalo for being there in our collective need as well. Mahalo.
What's your name?
I'm Laulani.
Hi. My name's Jacob, and I'm the documentarian working with the Truth and Healing Council that they mentioned early on. If you have a chance to see the trailer sizzle reel that we put together for this project, you'll get a sense of kind of, I think, where we're going to try to tell a story along with the report that they're putting together. The plan is to release the film along with the report and try to get some popular awareness of the stories that are happening across the state. It's been a tremendous privilege to be a part of this. I don't know if I'll ever have a project where I learn more about anything than I have already on this, and specifically about listening and about being a good ally, what that means to have the opportunity to be in these spaces, the responsibility of listening with your whole self. So thank you for letting me be part of it, guys. Can't wait for you guys to see it when the film comes out.
Hello, my name is Tom Huntington. I'm from San Francisco. I want to thank you so much for hosting this land trust, and I'm very grateful for all the people who have come from here and far and shared the stories that they have, the eloquence and the potency and the messages are. It's the time for the world to hear this, and it's so impressive. The work about identity and language, community building, the work of the commission. I want to thank Christina for inviting me to participate a couple of years ago. Acknowledgement to all the staff and commissioners here with us. I got introduced to the Native and Indian cultural survival and restoration through the environmental movement. I work with the Friends of the River, the Environmental Defense Fund, and on such issues as the loss of the Miwok territory on the Stanislaus River, Grand Canyon regarding uranium issues, on the Klamath River with the removal of the dams and hopefully the restoration of the salmon. I'm a volunteer with the effort on the North Coast with the Wiyot and other interested people to rename the Mad River, the Bump River. And I just can't say how meaningful this is and all of us, but the world is going to hear about this. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Maurer. I'm here to listen today. I'm not native. I grew up in Ukiah on Homeland, and I truly just not know anything about the history of that area while I was growing up, about the and so here to learn.
Hi, I'm Miranda Blackfry. I'm a citizen of the Colville Confederated Tribes in Eastern Washington. My band is the Snipes Band from Canada in the Arrow Lakes. I also work for the state of California, which is something I'm really trying to reconcile internally. But I feel really inspired by all the words that everybody shared today, and I only know 3 or 4 words of my own language, Unselcheen, which is a dialect of Salish. I feel inspired to go home and to learn more from everything that you all have shared. So it really means a lot to me to be here, and thank you for hosting. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Hi everyone, my name's Dakota and I work for the ACLU of Northern California, and my work is really at the center of Indigenous justice and education equity, which is why I'm here today. I also support the education subcommittee. If you're interested in joining, let me know. I'm happy to send you the calendar invite. But I'm really just honored to be here and to listen to everybody. Thank you so much to the Sogorea Land Trust and to you, Christina, for having us here today.
Hi, my name is Chris Chow. I am an attorney for the City and County of San Francisco, but I am not remotely here in my official capacity today. I live on the peninsula in what's now called Bailey City, and when I'm not doing my day job or taking care of my family, I'm doing whatever I can to help take care of the land. And I'm here so I can learn to be a better steward, a better guest, and how I can be more responsible in my efforts to take care of the land. Thank you for having us here.
My heart just dropped and my palms got really sweaty. Hi everybody, my name is Derek Emmons, and I'm currently working with a nonprofit in West Oakland called Common Vision, which the mission is around collective care and food distribution, environmental stewardship, centering the school gardens. I got hired on 2 weeks ago as the urban forestry director, but I know a few of you from a past life of working at the Resource Conservation District. And I suppose I would really like to thank you, everyone here that has really put so much heart, body, mind into the work of cultural revitalization, of the navigating the political system, of holding community together despite conflict and any number of things that tends to drag us down. And I think in many ways it's been hearing your narratives and and stories and histories that's actually provided me the tools to dig deeper into my own. And I think as someone that comes from kind of a mixture of people shaped by our own colonial processes and racist wars, I'm here both as a guest in your homeland and a multi-generational Bay Area townie where a lot of the core work of how to take care of land and take care of community across in a broad solidarity, it's all come back down to relationship repair. And I think as a father to a Chiricahua Apache child and trying to be a good relative to his mother and other mothers, he has two wonderful mothers. The devotion to land and place, I think, I don't want to ramble, but I have a lot of respect and a lot of gratitude for the work that you've done and for this space, and look forward to the continued journey of taking care of one another. I also got to get this guy home to his own child, so
Hi.
Hi everyone. I really wish I was able to be here earlier so I could hear more from everyone, but I'm happy to know that there is something like this that I can come back to from now on. I am a guest on Ohlone territory. I come from several beautiful backgrounds, one of them being Los Coyotes, a band of Kuya, so that's so funny that right when I walked in you were talking about. Yeah. And then my father is Laotian American. This is Mark, by the way. This is my dad. He comes to support me in these spaces. And then, so my mother is a band of Kuya and Filipino. And I would like to share a little bit about myself. I'm a San Francisco State University alumni. You over there. I'm actually a graduate from the Race and Resistance Studies, College of Ethnic Studies. And I entered into college not necessarily knowing what I wanted to do, but I was the first child on both sides of my family to graduate high school, to attend college, and to graduate college. And I couldn't be more grateful for the guidance that I had from my awesome father here, my mother, and everyone around me. And I know that the U.S. education system is extremely flawed, but I didn't recognize that growing up basically until like high school, you know, when I was taking my civics courses or my history classes, or even in elementary. I knew growing up that I was Kuya. I also grew up on the reservation, raised by my full Kuya grandmother and my aunties, my titas and all that. But when you grow up as an indigenous child, you're basically, well, you're extremely neglected. You're not given, honestly, the right to appreciate who you are as a person. A lot of our history is stripped, so even when you do learn about like ancestral history, a lot of the time it's through the Eurocentric white settler colonialist lens. So I had this, I guess, this very much disconnect with it. But growing up on the res, even though I was like 7 years old, I could tell, okay, the land's a lot different from the city. You know, I just came from Temecula and Lake Paris, and it's nothing like here, but I love it. It's beautiful. I remember telling like my family, my favorite thing about it here is like, I could see all the stars. I could see the sky, and I didn't know that's a form of me saying, wow, everywhere else is extremely polluted by extractive industry. You know, that's like, being a child, I was able to recognize it, but I just didn't have the language of like, food desert, linguistic genocide, up until I got into San Francisco State. And then I had a professor, her first name is Rama, if any of you know her, but she had us read this book called The Educational Survival Complex by Bettina Love. It's a great read, and that basically just talks about how the education systems, like what they're actually built upon. And that had led me to being a RRS major, and then I interned with Sacred Places Institute for Indigenous Peoples. We're an indigenous-led nonprofit organization, and I now work with them as a program administrative director. So I'm extremely grateful to be in that space. And we're basically, we're here to protect sacred lands, waters, and cultures by uplifting indigenous spaces and doing actual forms of like rematriation to the land, and not necessarily abiding or like going into, how do I say, in a nicer way, I guess greenwashing. But yeah, and it's been a beautiful experience. Another reason why I got into this space is because over COVID, I actually lost 4 of my indigenous family members, 2 to COVID and 2 to suicide. And then I didn't really understand how I spent a lot of my time, you know, in education and trying to find this like success or whatever. But the only way I figured I was going to learn more about my family is if I also learn more about myself, which is our roots, you know, of giving back to the land and yeah, and just understanding culture more, especially even coming from my Laotian side, where my grandmother had to escape the war, swimming over the Mekong River, and then my Filipino side, which had to come over here because of Spanish colonialism. And I really appreciate you guys for hearing my story. I just wanted to share because my story is also not unique. All of us have our own story, and yeah, thank you for having me here, and I'm sending a lot of love. I'm sorry?
Where's the sacred places?
They're based on Tongvan Chumash territory. So we're in
Southern California.
Marcus 6 and May. I was born in Stockton. I'm from Richmond. That's my daughter.
Thank you, Karina, and thank you for holding this, everyone that's doing this. And thank Governor Newsom for his order, whatever it was. Yeah. Proclamation. My name is Ejna Fleury, and I'm enrolled in Crow Creek, South Dakota. And my mother is from Cheyenne River in South Dakota, and I just discovered I have a relative over here. It's amazing to sit here and discover you have a relative, and that happens in Indian country, all the time. And I'm amazed at how many connections I have with different ones of you in different ways. In the mid-90s, I worked for Indian Health Service, and I helped all the Indian health programs in the state get carved out and get preserved when managed care came in, and I was a project officer, and one of my projects happened to be from Round Valley, and there was a fire there, and they flew us in to meet with the people, so I've actually visited there. I've worked in Stockton, Dameron Hospital, and anyway, it just so many beautiful connections. But what I want to share is I'm noticing how much we're listening. There's almost no meeting I could go to where people are really deeply listening, and how we're awakening, to this deep care, because when you listen, you care to listen deeply, and for us we're going to need this care for one another, because the harder times are coming. We know that we're going to have to hold hands and hearts and be in our communities as we're going through this kind of a combination of awakening and challenge to create a whole new civilization, a whole new way of life here on this planet. So thank you, every single one of you, for the work that you're doing and the love that you're carrying and expressing. Thank you. Oh, I said it. Ejna Fleury. Oh, Ejna Fleury. Okay, I'm gonna say something more. Okay, I'm a part of 2 women's movements, and we're calling together all the women of this planet to gather together. It's called Divine Mothers Love and Founding Mothers Movement. And the intention is for us to move away from war. We're going to end war. So that means going deep into the healing processes. But we do this from the higher dimensions, which is love, and that mystery of exponential brilliance, quantum entanglement, and the way spirit is weaving us together. And we're being woven right now in a very beautiful way. So, yeah, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Asia. My name's Molly McEdigan Arthur, and I honor Karina as a saint in my life. Now I'll cry. Because Karina has always welcomed and always prayed and always talked about the sacred and the healing. I'm a descendant of the original Spanish conquistadors who came to California. And I humbly renounce the work that they did with more than humility, but with rage and anger about what was perpetrated. In my name, it's in my blood. And I would like to, with the strength of Karina's help and the council here today to say to Jason, I would like to renounce the name of Mount Diablo that my ancestor has said and was involved in naming. And if that's a reparation that I think is a small part of much of what is to be offered. I have been teaching white Catholics and white Christians about their history, starting with the doctrine of discovery, because they know nothing about their history, which is astonishing, and I didn't either, of course. So it's been a journey of working in worlds that are astonished about what is the truth, and their worlds are to be healing and prayerful and sacred. So the calling is to bring that from them so that we may be healed from the soul wound and the sick illness that we have been captured in the horrors that we perpetrated. So I thank you for inviting me here, for allowing me to be here, for being a part of my restoration towards healing, that I may humbly in any way assist with what you would call for from the people who are not here.
Hello everybody, my name is Paven. I'm Papa in Kiowa from out in Oklahoma. Was raised in Fresno, but I'm active back in my home nation, Papa, politically and in ceremonial life. I just want to start by thanking Kata for inviting me here, and thanking the council and Christina for letting me speak. I came out here to go to school in the Bay Area at Berkeley, and ever since I graduated, I got a little more spare time on my hands, and I wanted to get out here and do my part for the people whose land I'm on, and I'm here in a listening and learning capacity, and hopefully I'll be able to get some done for y'all and make myself useful. I wasn't raised to be useless. Thank y'all. Gonna get.
Thank you all, Rena and everyone who made it possible. My name is Dr. Gomes, in case you don't hear me. Thank you for giving us a voice. All of us here are the answer to the prayers of our grandparents. And thank you for giving us a voice to represent our ancestors who have been so brutally silenced. And now it's time for us to all come together, get woven together, the prophecy of the eagle and the condor, and reconnecting our indigenous knowledge, and so we can help everyone move forward in a good way. So thank you so much.
Greetings everyone. I'm Arina Weisman. I'm a Buddhist minister. I lead communities around the United States. And I'm also part of Kahila Synagogue, which has been working on some of the projects that we've spoken about. I want to acknowledge how much has happened on this land and how beautiful it is, and the gardens, the incredible vegetables and flowers, and all of you, that I can feel it, the spirit here, how beautiful it is. I'm 74 years old. I was born in Johannesburg, South Africa. My grandmother was from Lithuania and my grandfather from Odessa in Ukraine. And they were escaping the pogroms of Eastern Europe and went to South Africa, and then my parents were involved in the anti-apartheid movement and in jail. And so when they got out, we had to leave the country, and we went to Israel, and then we had to leave that country, of course. And we got political asylum in England as stateless refugees. We were white, so that made a big difference in getting in. And so when you talk about land, I feel not just the sacred connection to one land, but to many lands. And really, wherever I find myself, is the invitation to do that greeting, to greet and to honor. And so I greet and honor you all from South Africa as my homeland and the many other countries I've lived in, and to call in, as you all have beautifully said, to call in the naming and the love that is inside of us. My work is about healing trauma and doing it in the format of retreats, using the Buddha's teachings and the teachings of the earth and the teachings I've received from some of you. And to name the trauma of privilege, whether it's as a white person or as a middle class person or as someone in a male body or as someone who isn't able-bodied or someone who's a veteran or someone who doesn't have access to resources. Those experiences, and then the opposite of what it means to be able-bodied or to have access to resources, or to be a man. That's what I meant. I got confused. Gendered, and to have money. And in all those things, I'm learning there's a trauma there that stops us from seeing and connecting with love. And so in leading these retreats where we're coming together in community to look at the places where we've been targeted in the colonization process and also separated in our privileged spaces and locations. So I wanted to share that was my work. Thank you so much for allowing me to listen.
Okay, so we're at about 6:40. There is some food here. I want to have, if Christina, you'd like to close us out and close the circle, and then we can break to eat, and then some folks can go see Ross Cadet playing at the Oakland Museum. He's a member of my tribe. So not an endorsement, but we'll have
support around. We went from hot to cold, right? And so that's the beauty of the of this land that we call the Bay now. I also just want to shout out Sharon Marcos, who is works at Sogorea Land Trust. She's my assistant. She is the amazing person that got us all together, that worked with Loretta and got the food for us. And so, yay for Sharon. She's also organizing a volunteer day here tomorrow. She's working with teachers on Sunday, so she's got a lot of stuff to do. And so, but also just want to say thank you for everybody's hearts and minds and spirits that came here today, all the people that didn't. And so just want to offer some prayers for this food and our gathering. So Creator and ancestors, grandmothers and grandfathers, we ask that you watch over us and take care of us. And thank you so much for allowing us to be able to speak words and to feel today, and allow us to be in this circle. And we say special blessing and prayers for all of those that do not have enough nourishment today. We ask that our spirit relatives come and they enjoy this meal with us today, and that they listen to us and help us and help our hearts tonight. We ask grandmothers and grandfathers, as we go away from each other today, that we get to our destinations in a good way, and that we get back to our families, and that we have stories to share, and that we continue to come back and look for the healing that we all need in order to go forward. And so that we ask grandmothers and grandfathers for all those good things, the abundance that we know that we have, and that we continue to do the work that our ancestors have called us to do. Sharon, if you want to talk about the menu, bet. It is a beautiful Middle Eastern foods that we have over here. And we should eat before it gets colder, and you guys could all go party.
Hello everyone, we have some chicken, we have some veggie kebabs, and there are also some gluten-free falafels for folks. And yeah, let's get some food. Elders first.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Have some food.
It is